Ladies and gentlemen, would like to begin tonight's meeting, October 23rd, 2023, with a short prayer and a salute to our flag. Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all of our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice and service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please be seated. Statement of publication, please, Jess.
Take notice that this regular meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 23rd day of October 2023 has been posted and advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Balca.
Here.
Conti.
Here.
Novak.
Here.
Anoha.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Zabrowski.
Here.
At this time, I'll ask for the approval of prior minutes of the mayor and council. Council President Anoha, please.
Thank you, esteemed mayor, and good evening to you. I'd like to make a motion to approve with subject to correction if necessary, the following receipt bid, special meeting, and regular agenda sessions of October 3rd, October 10th, 2023.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Anoha.
Yes.
Balca.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes.
Zabrowski.
Yes.
Okay, this evening, we have the pleasure of beginning with our proclamations for this evening and presentations for our Melrose Firehouse 100th year anniversary. Before we get up to read the proclamation, I think first round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen that are here with us today. It's my honor to read for you this evening's proclamation. And I'll actually, you know what? I'll go up there now, so that way I got the meetings away. If you want, I'll read first and then if you want to come up, Mary and the rest as well. Gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'll let you get into order. Okay. Proclamation of the Borough of Saraville, the Melrose Hose Company number 100th anniversary. Whereas the Melrose Hose Company number 1 of the Saraville Fire Department was formed in January of 1922 by the residents of the Melrose section of the Borough of Saraville. And whereas the first fire chief for the Melrose Hose Company was Chief Frank Koch, who served from 1927 to 1929. The first captain was J. DeFort in 1922. Wow, it's to see it is something. To think 100 years. Melrose is by far not the forgotten area. It's the foundation of our town. Whereas the original firehouse was located where the flagpole and monument is now located. In March 25th, 1962, ground was broken to build a new firehouse around the original firehouse. After the completion of the new firehouse, the original firehouse was razed. The firehouse went through a remodeling in the 1980s and 1990s, which created 3 truck bays to replace the 2 truck bays. I think we still need more, right, gentlemen? Yep. In 2017, a pole barn was erected for storage and to hold future equipment. And whereas in 1972, the Melrose Hose Company number 1 celebrated their 50th anniversary with the parade and celebration. And whereas the Melrose Hose Company covers the following areas: President Park, Woodside, Laurel Park, Sarah Woods, Parkway Homes, Chevrolet Development, Garden State Parkway, from the top of the bridge to the Morgan Creek, and major highways. Wow. That is just incredible. And if you have had the opportunity to visit the Melrose Firehouse, it's it definitely needs that more space, and look at how much we rely on you for our entire town. Whereas the Melrose Hose Company has fought many numerous large fires in its history, some of them being the Chevron fire, Durham Corner Fire, Embroidery Street Warehouse Fire, the Atlantic Resource Fire, and many, many more. Whereas the Melrose Hose Company has the honor to also have 4 members in its history to serve 50 years with the Saraville Fire Department. These members are JJ Andrzejewski, Jay Perro, W. Charpit, I'm going to say this wrong. I knew it. And Jay Mudd. Congratulations. Let's just give a round of applause for those gentlemen. Impressive service. Now, therefore be it resolved that I, Victoria Kilpatrick, Mayor of the Borough of Saraville, do hereby recognize the 100th anniversary of the Melrose Hose Company, #1, and wholeheartedly thank them for their selfless service to the residents of the Borough of Saraville. I have caused this proclamation to be issued and the official seal of the borough duly affixed on this, the 23rd day of October, 2023, and the same duly attested by the municipal clerk. It is my honor, gentlemen, to celebrate our Melrose Hose Company and your service, as well as the service of those that have passed and those that will serve us in the future. It's my honor to give you this proclamation and presentation. One more wait. Smile. Okay. Now, before I hand this over to our council members, I'd first like to hand the microphone over to whichever one of you would like to address. There you go. Look, I saw that look very nicely handled there.
Thanks. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I'm a 50-year member. Wayne's a 50-year member. Melrose goes back a lot of history. It was started by the old citizens that needed a firehouse in that area. They were the farthest away from Borough Hall. They were the farthest from the town. And everybody thinks we belong to South Amboy, but no, we belong to the town of Saraville. It's been an honor on my thing to serve the borough of Saraville for the 50 years. I started when I was 19 years old. I was one of the youngest ones to start at 19 when they passed the law that you could be under 21. It's something I always wanted to do. I had a friend that was in the Melrose. I made many friends and moved up rank from second lieutenant, first lieutenant to captain. I've been recording secretary for over 30 some years at that firehouse. I still continue to do it, and that's my home away from home. So thank you all for coming out. Thank the council, mayor, for allowing us to be part of the borough.
You have 50. Now's your time. You want to address the crowd? There you go.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. And I did my 50 years. And when I first came out of the Air Force, I wanted to get into Melrose. At that time, they only had 30 members. They had to put another 5 on in order for me to get in. And when they put the 5 on, it was in April. So I got in April 1st, April Fool's Day, I got in the Melrose Hose Company, and I'm still there.
Oh, thank you so much. When you had said thank you as the borough for allowing the Melrose Hose Company to be a part of our borough, we have to say thank you. This isn't about allowing anybody anything. This is about our residents standing up and wanting to support and protect one another. So this is our honor, and we appreciate the fact that you are here 50 years. You can do another 50. Another 50. But with your 50 years, though, comes the experience that needs to be passed on to our newest members. because those years are, it's knowledge, it's education, and it's the part of the new recruits that we lose when you are no longer a part of going into those circumstances. So for the sake of our entire town, I hope you continue to share your knowledge and stay on in that capacity. So I have faith. So I'm certain that our council would also like to express their sincere thank you. So I will begin on my right.
Okay. It really, and I just spoke about things lasting. And in this society that's become increasingly disposable, having you guys here is spectacular. And I said at well, I didn't say it, I didn't speak it. The library just gave a memorial to their volunteers, the Friends of the Library. And what was said is profound. Sayreville exists because of its volunteers. Our employees are wonderful. Don't get me wrong, George. But this town is really built on our volunteers. I mean, how many towns in Middlesex County still have volunteer fire departments? So many of them have had to go, paid. It's really a spectacular thing. But as much as you guys do, I'd like everybody to give a round of applause for their families who also give up a lot for them to be.
Well said, Mary. Absolutely. I mean, 100 years for the firehouse, 50 years for the two gentlemen here. Outstanding achievement. It's because of you guys that it's still going for 100 years. It takes a good crew, a dedicated crew to keep it going and to keep it effective. So I thank you for that. Congratulations on the honor, 100 years and your 50 years in service. And I can just say thank you for protecting the residents of Sayreville. Appreciate everything that you guys do. Thank you.
I also want to echo what everyone said, that the dedication that you have, you are all volunteers. You've all had to have a full-time job. You have families at home. You have the training, the amount of training that you have to maintain, maintaining the vehicles, maintaining the structures. That's a lot of work, and you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart because you have a servant's heart. And I so appreciate that. And the least of which that you wouldn't blink an eye at running into a flaming building to save any one of us is just remarkable. And I thank you for all that you've done.
Just want to thank you for all the countless hours you guys put in serving us, and including all the training you guys do now. That every year there seems to be more and more training that's required and more hours you guys have to put in. Without the volunteers in town, we wouldn't be where we are. We couldn't afford to do what we do. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, you already see how grateful as a community we are, but as a personal note, as the former chief and having the opportunity to have worked alongside you, not fighting fires, but being on fire scenes, being in emergency management positions where you've gone out and countless hours, whether it was Superstorm Sandy or just the tree that fell down and had to be removed. Your efforts were absolutely professional at all times. We just have, I can't even tell you how thankful I am for the work that you guys have done over those years, what I've seen from you and being able to work side by side. I'm just extremely proud to be able to say I had the opportunity to do that. Congratulations on 100 years. Congratulations, absolutely, on 50 years as volunteers. That is absolutely outstanding. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is so much more that we can say and so many other ways we should thank you. From the bottom of my heart, as somebody with little kids and the whole family here, I sleep better at night knowing that we have 50 years of service in front of me and that we have many more years. And honestly, Sayreville is blessed and grateful to have you and to have such wonderful volunteers in all of our firehouses. Congratulations on 100 years. Ladies and gentlemen, our Melrose Hose Company, once again. God bless you. Okay, God bless you all. It's an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor. George, love you, George. You're very welcome. How many years in? That's a lucky number. No, they still will always be older. Oh.
I'm in 10 years.
10 years. Thank you, gentlemen. Stay safe. Can I have a motion, please, to accept the proclamation?
I make a motion to accept the proclamation for the
Second.
100th anniversary.
With a quick second, obviously.
Councilpersons Roberts,
Yes.
Balca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Enoja,
Yes.
Dabrowski.
Always want to just end with the presentations and proclamations, but we do have a lot of work to do today as well. So we are going to move forward with our old business, and we have a public hearing on several ordinances.
Public hearing on ordinance number 34-23, an ordinance supplementing and amending ordinance 436-19, fixing the salaries of certain borough officials, officers, and employees for the year 2022.
At this time, I'll open to the public for any and all comments regarding ordinance number 34-23. If you have any comments, please stand up or raise your hand online. I see none online, and I see no one coming forward, so I will entertain a motion by our Administration and Finance Committee, Councilman Balca.
Move the public hearing be closed. The ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Balca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Enoja,
Did we lose Councilman? Council President, I think you're muted. Yeah, he's still muted. Christian, if you can hear me, you're muted. I think we'll have to move forward at this point.
Roberts,
Yes.
Dabrowski. Public hearing on ordinance number 35-23, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 8 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to amend Section 8-3 peddlers and hawkers.
At this time, I'll open to the public in regards to ordinance number 35-23. Anyone from the public wish to speak at this time? Yes.
Bob Duffy, 111 Merritt Avenue. This peddlers and hawkers, what is the ordinance all about?
Okay, do you
Does
want
anybody have any idea?
at the council or?
It's allowing a food truck at the, down by the river.
Okay, what
Because
about,
prior to that, there was none allowed there.
what about people that go house to house?
Nothing else has changed.
Yeah, that's we have the do not knock still.
This
Um,
has nothing to do.
No,
with
has nothing
This
to do
will
with
not
that,
change
just
that.
food
But
trucks.
you do have an ordinance on people going house to house in the neighborhood.
We do,
Do,
we
do
do.
they have to have a permit to do that?
They do. Yes, they do.
Okay.
That is something that I think would be very important if we could put that out on our Borough Blast, because I've noticed that as the weather is still nice, I think there's more and more individuals that are going door to door. I know that at this time, we currently do not have anybody that has put in for solicitors. Oh, you do have 3 now? Okay, usually we have none. So maybe we can put that out as far as who has actually obtained those permits, because that can become very scary.
Well,
and
I just
concerning.
happened to have in the last 2 weeks, 3 different people come to my door in the morning and in the afternoon. And I asked them to see their permit. None of them have it. And in times of today,
Yeah.
you have to be very careful. You see something, say something. So,
So in that circumstance, if they do not produce the permit, then you can call the non-emergency number for the police department.
Okay.
Oftentimes, and they usually run from my door, once I ask to turn around and take a picture of their identification card, then I ask for their permit. Luckily, I do have a couple of police officers that live very close to me, so I tell them, good luck if they continue to knock. Usually they leave,
I'm
but
just
at
trying
the
to
same
be-
time,
I'm just trying to be vigilant.
No, I agree. I think we need to do a little bit better job also as a borough to alerting our residents to which companies do have that. In addition, just so that we understand the process, once they put in their permit, then we have to vet out exactly who they're doing. Right,
Well, they all say they have it,
yeah,
but the supervisor has it. I says, yeah, but you're supposed to have
yeah,
it.
that doesn't count.
Yeah, they're supposed to have it on them.
Okay, I just,
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I
All right.
appreciate your
You're welcome.
inquiry.
Madam Mayor, another thing I noticed is when they come to their door, they're claiming they don't solicit it. They're offering a free estimate on something. So-
Yeah, it doesn't
So we
fly.
we should probably look at the ordinance and maybe tweak that a little bit so to make it more restrictive, so they can't offer us a free estimate and when they're trying to sell us stuff anyway, because
That's a good point. Sean, can we turn that over to you? Just to tighten up that language, because yes, that is pretty clever to turn around and say they're not soliciting because, good point, Dan. I'm sure of it. Any other questions regarding this particular ordinance? Okay. No one online. Ollie will entertain a motion as administration and finance again. Councilman Balco.
would the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law?
Roll call.
Councilpersons Balca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Enoha,
Yes.
Roberts, Zabrowski. Public hearing on ordinance number 36-23, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 2, Administration of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to establish Section 2-68, restricted areas and buildings where municipal operations are conducted.
I'll open once again to the public for any and all comments on this particular ordinance. Seeing none in person or online, I will once again entertain a motion by our administration and finance councilman Balca.
Would the public hearing be closed, the ordinance adopted on second and final reading and advertised according to law?
Is there a second? Thank you. Roll call.
Councilpersons Balca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Enoha,
Yes.
Roberts, Zabrowski.
Okay, moving forward, we're going to go to new business. We have the introduction of the following ordinance, ordinance number 3723. Jessica?
An ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 17 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to amend Section 17-3, public use of tennis courts at Kennedy Park.
That's Recreation Committee, so that goes over to Councilwoman Novak, please.
I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and for a public hearing to be held on November 13th prevailing time.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Balca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Enoha,
Yes.
Roberts, Zabrowski.
Yes.
At this time, I will open to the public for comments regarding our public resolutions, our resolutions listed on our agenda. If anyone has any questions regarding the resolutions, please step forward. Please, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. I didn't want to get up on the other one, on the pickleball ordinance, but I hope that lights are going to be considered in the future because that's pretty popular. We light our tennis courts. Folks would like to play at night. I think that would be a good idea. But I do have two questions on the bill list. The first one is I see $21,000 to JCP&L. Are any of those bills for streetlights?
Did you question that, Mary?
I actually circled it because I wanted to bring it up, see, because I had asked Sean, well, I actually was Sal at the last meeting.
Yes.
I asked him if he could check on.
Mrs.
the
Novak, can you
wallet.
use the microphone, please?
It's on, I'm sorry. When I talk to somebody, I
Okay.
kind of turn towards them. I'll have to just carry the mic with me.
Yeah, did Sal give you, I'm sure he gave you that update.
Yeah, we did. And we actually today penned a letter to JCP&L Legal Department asking them for their position on their lack of services,
Mhm.
putting them on notice that this could create a legal consequence because they haven't been honoring the contract they have with the town. So we'll report back to you when we get a response.
Okay.
That's our
And
first
it-
step. Are we, so at this time, would it be your legal opinion to not move forward with just paying them? One of the things we discussed was really just stopping payment.
Yeah.
So is this our first avenue in the event that this goes unanswered, then we move forward?
I mean, you certainly have the right to do that if you choose to do that, because they have not been providing the services that they've agreed to provide. However, I can tell you that We have been in touch with legal and they are putting their best foot forward and saying that they are going to address it. I know we haven't had much success with the middle management people. I think it may be in the best interest of the borough to pay them, go forward and develop some type of a relationship and down the road, maybe exercise that nuclear option. But for now, you might want to just play nice and see if they respond to our correspondence in a way that's appropriate for the municipality. You certainly have the right to withhold it.
And I'll turn it over also to Glenn to give
And
in.
not long after they received their letter, I got a call from Miss Early from JCP&L who indicated that they would be employing an outside contractor to get them caught up with the lighting issue within the town in order to get caught up with the lights.
Okay, wonderful. We won't be incurring any additional fees for that outside contractor, clearly. Okay.
Yeah,
That would be-
Miss Early communicated that with me as well. She said they would be starting today, Monday. And no, I'm sorry, they did at least 9 on Friday. They
Mhm.
were supposed to have 2 more crews out today. I just want to note that our total streetlight bill for the borough for electricity is $500,000 a year. So this is not a trite matter that I'm bringing up. And Mr. Kane and Administrator, you weren't here at the last meeting. It was a very productive meeting, by the way. We did open space. We denied a pilot. It was a very productive meeting. I'm sure that has nothing to do with your absence, but I did mention that the certification that the business administrator signs to get those bills paid says that those services are delivered. And that's a certification. So I think that has to be taken into account. So I appreciate the update on that. I appreciate that they have their crews out and we'll be getting this done finally. I did note in my last email to Miss Early that there was a serious accident on Main Street where a pedestrian who was crossing the road
Yes, it was.
in front of a very light that I had called to her attention in June. And a pedestrian was struck. So it's not, it's not insignificant. It's not trivial. They're matters of public safety. That's why I bring them up. And my next question is, I see that there is a bill for $26,000 to the New Jersey Tree Foundation. And this, I guess, is coming out of the Tree Bank Fund. Denise, what do we have in the Tree Bank Fund now? Could you tell me that, please? I know it fluctuated between 800,000 and $1 million.
Yeah, it's over 2 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
2.6 million.
Yep.
Okay, 2.6 million. So this is, help me with my math here. If this is 26,000, is it 0.10% of the tree bank? 2.6 million divided by 26,000. And what is, well, somebody can figure that out, but it's not, it's,
Move the decimal. point.
About
yeah.
1%.
Just move the decimal points.
About 1%.
Mhm.
So it's a very insignificant portion, and I'm not complaining about this, although I do want to know, is this for the, how many trees was this for?
78.
78? So that would $333 a tree, and I assume that's for planting. 2.
Acquisition and installation.
Acquisition and installation. Okay, fine. And I don't know, for that many, maybe that's 333 is a good price. I'm not sure. But was this, it came from New Jersey Tree Foundation. Was this bid? Does anybody know? Do we have to bid at $26,000? We don't have to bid that.
I believe the bid threshold's 40.
It's 40 now. Okay, all right. And I'm not taking issue with this. In fact, I've said for a very long, as many of you know, I wrote the tree bank ordinance. I never anticipated that it would have $2.6 million. That green is supposed to be out there on the roads and in the parks, not in our bank account. And so even if this is only 0.1%, I'm glad we're spending this, but I've had a discussion with Mr. Rittenhouse, and maybe this doesn't belong under the bill list. I'll bring it up later, but we should spend that money. I hear about this plan, this grandiose plan to spend it. We're spending $26,000, 0.1%. that's a start, but we really need to spend this money, and especially down there at Blue Acres, so that we don't have to take money from the open space fund. So I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I appreciate your answers on this now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Anybody else have comment or question regarding resolutions on the today's agenda? Seeing none at this time, I will entertain a motion.
Close the public portion and adopt the consent agenda on roll call vote.
Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Falca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Enoja,
Yes.
Roberts, Zabrowski.
Yes.
At this time, we'll move to our resolution to be read in full. I'll turn that over to you once again, Jess.
Resolution number 2023-286. Be it, and it is hereby resolved that the proper borough officials are hereby authorized and directed to execute a memorandum of agreement with AFSCME Local 3527 covering contract years 2023, 24, 25, 26, and 27.
At this time, I'll open to the public for any comments regarding this resolution and this resolution only. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public and accept the resolution as listed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Falca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Enoja,
Yes.
Roberts, Zabrowski.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will then move on to our correspondence. I'll need a motion in order to accept the correspondence as listed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Falca,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Enoja,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Zabrowski.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we're going to move to our mayor and council reports. We'll begin with our administration and finance councilman, Falca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The administration was busy finalizing the contract and getting it passed, so that was the big thing they did. We also received our audit. We had 2 comments/recommendations that had been addressed already. One of them snuck back from like 12 years ago, so we got to keep an eye on that going forward. On the audit, you notice we got like $14 million in fund balance, which is really healthy. It's 20% of our budget. It's 40% of our amount to be raised by taxes. So it's crazy.
That's
If
great.
you looked at like the average of the 13 years prior to COVID, our average was 3.7 million, and now we have 14 million, which is totally, we could pay for a lot of roads and stuff going forward, hopefully with some of this money.
I love that. That's fantastic.
So, I mean, I looked at the water side on the surplus. Their surplus always balances between 1 million and 1.5 to 2.5 right now, but there's a lot of projects that need to be done in the water department, so that's gonna suck up that money, but
Right.
we have progress, so.
That's fantastic. Excellent job. Thank you, Councilman, and thank you to our team, Denise's team. Well done. Thank you for keeping us in this healthy check. Nice. We'll move forward now with our public safety. Councilwoman Roberts, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no reports this meeting. Progress.
Thank you. Wow, we're moving today. Can we move to Public Works? Councilman Conti. Look at this.
I was expecting a 15 minutes buffer there. Goodness. All right, so a bunch of things. So I'm glad to report that roads that have been paved, Buchanan, Standerfoot, Highland, and Sunrise, all done. The Active Adult Center parking lot is finally completed. So those of you that are in that, I know, Bill, you're often there for all those special days they have. So nice and safe for the active adults at this point, which is great. South Minnesink, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong on anything, but they are making progress. Albeit, I know it's slow for everybody. They are finishing the cement work and should be able to mill and pave the upper portion of South Minnesink within the next couple of weeks. And the lower portion underneath the overpass may be a little longer because of permits that are required. But we anticipate that they should be able to get the upper portion milled and paved within the next couple of weeks. So slow moving, but a lot went
Can I
into
just
that.
interrupt for 1
Oh,
second
sorry.
because it's going to be difficult for our residents to hear. In the audience, I will ask that if you wish to speak, just to step out because our our system is very sensitive, so it is going to pick up your conversation and it's going to restrict our ability to have those people listening online understand what our council people are saying. So if you do want to, like, just, it's okay. Don't worry, you're not, no detention or anything, just, we're very, our mics are very sensitive. Thank you. Councilman Conti?
Thank you. So anyway, I think South Minnesink is coming along slowly but surely. A lot of work needed to go into that road, and that's why it's taking as long as it is. Anytime you need to get into concrete and underground plumbing and sewer, it's a bit of a nightmare. So we thank you for your patience, and soon enough, you'll have a nice, smooth, paved road over there. All right, so what else? Ulner Drive. So I was taking a look at the monthly reports. It was very timely. And I know I spoke to a couple of the residents over there as well, who were very thankful for Craig Fallon and the work that he's done over in that area. And he did note it in his monthly report that he vectored and jetted all the lines on Ulner. So I Googled those two words because it was essentially, I wanted to know what they were, essentially cleaning out the lines. And maybe there's a more, technical description of what he did, but they blew out the lines, made sure that they were clear so water could flow, which is important. And did work on the ditch, the creek at the end of that road as well, to ensure that it's clear. And if water came pouring down there, of course, that it could flow freely. And I was there a couple of times. I was there when it was raining the other day as well. I wanted to see how the water was flowing. It's definitely it certainly makes you hold your breath if you're there and it's raining heavily, because the way the driveways are, they drop down below the surface. So as soon as that water gets over the curb, it's going down the driveway, which it breaks my heart when I see that, where it happened before. But everything was flowing freely, which I thought was good. I know we talked about exploring the opportunity to add additional drainage there, because it does only have, I think, 4. But I know that is complicated. Jay, I know you were exploring it, or at least having some conversations about it, correct?
We actually, after the meeting, we inspected the system. We found the downstream ditch. There's a lot of debris, so that was cleaned out by the Public Works Department. We also recommended that all the upstream inlets be checked, because if they're full of dirt or debris, water's going to bypass them and make its way to Ulner Street, which is the lowest point in the system. So I don't know if that work's been completed yet. And it's not only Saraville, but South Amboy and the county need to do that work as well in order to try to make sure that there is really a problem, or is it just the infrastructure that needs maintenance?
Yeah, and at some point, do you think it is possible we can drop a drain in the middle of that roadway?
If you're going to do improvements on Ulner, what we would recommend is that you actually put another pipe in with additional inlets. So instead of the pipe that's there, that would give you more capacity. If you had a second pipe, then you could add additional inlets to handle more of that water.
All right, so there's hope for the future. We need to stay on top of it for now. And as I said, I was there while it was raining, checking it out to see what was happening, and it was flowing freely. So I know Craig and his team certainly did a good job. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see that it stays that way. All right, I do want to thank the high school staff over at the high school, Mr. Howard, Mr. Kano, Mr. Moore, Principal Kulkowski. I was there for Legislators Back to School Day. I saw Donna in the hallways too, chatting it up in the corner there, causing some mischief. I'm just kidding. She was there as well. I want to thank them all for that, for the invitation and for their hospitality as well. I spoke to 4 classes that day. So my morning was free, so I spoke with 4 of them. And, I'm not a teacher, Mayor's a teacher, so she gets to see a lot of this every day. But when I get the chance to spend some time with the youth, I just really enjoy it. And they were very engaged in many different subjects. Sometimes, as you know, you can't get them to stop. But they were very engaged. They asked a lot of questions. I caught one of the classes before lunch. So when I asked them what they'd like to see as far as future development, they demanded a Chipotle, a Popeyes, amongst other things. We talked a lot about the Amboy Cinema coming down and what they, what their thoughts were on that. They would love to see something for the children, for the youth to do. I know in Edison, they have go-karts and Top Golf and, but just something, that's the way they were thinking at least, something for the youth. And I was in Mr. Kano's class. He's a whiz with stuff. He pulls up things and then all of a sudden we started talking about Riverton and all that Riverton should have to offer for the youth as far as the restaurants and the activities and the things that they will have in Bass Pro Shops, movies, bowling alley, et cetera, things of that nature. So that, they got excited about that. And I kind of told them that Riverton is sort of right in their wheelhouse because they're seniors and they're about that age where when that stuff starts to develop, they could be, who knows, they could be the first residents of some of those places there and users of all the facilities that they will have. So they were very excited about that. We talked about a lot, which I thought was a good opportunity to find out, well, why don't we put this? I said, well, we don't put anything anywhere. Developers or businesses come into our town, and if it's the right business for the town, if it's zoned, well, then okay, we can allow that. But we can't go in and build our own Popeyes or it just doesn't work that way. And so, they were enlightened on a couple of things. And same thing about, the roads. One of them had mentioned South Minnesink. And I said, okay, yeah, that's, we talked a little bit about it. And then other roads. And I said, we get our money from property taxes. That's our revenue in town. So, essentially you all pay for what we do. And there has to be a cap on those types of things. Otherwise, everybody would be paying through the roof. And so it was enlightening in that we kind of talked through a lot and explained a lot to them. So they understood a little bit better, which I thought was great. The feedback afterward was very good as well. They were sort of like, it left them with a little bit of a buzz. I don't know. That's what I get from the teachers, that they get excited about things. And there's in Mr. Moore's class as a sharp individual there by the name of Emily, who has a desire to one day be up in the dais here. So, I said, we could talk a little bit about what you might do to do that, but I kind of have a lot of confidence in her that one day she'll get to be up here, which is nice. It was kind of a goal of hers. So, I thought it was really great. It's one of the nice things that they offer for us to do, and I really enjoy that. All right, a couple other things. The nightlife around our town was buzzing this weekend. I mean, it just really was great. And I love to see that. And I love to see it all staying in town. So Friday night, they had a football game. So go Bombers. Well done, Bombers. They won that game, so they're going into the playoffs. And then afterwards, large crowd of people go into some of the local businesses and celebrate, which is great. I popped in there and I saw some people celebrate a little bit with them. Again, I really enjoy seeing that, people staying in town, supporting our local businesses and helping them thrive. So I thought that was great. And then on Saturday, the Navratri celebration presented by Asia, which is the Association of Sayreville Indian Americans. And this event was jam-packed with, I would say it was, I don't know, they said the numbers were about 1,000 people. And it was the first time I've attended. And I do want to compliment the PD, security at the place, the organizers as well, because I got there and it was packed already and they were moving the cars around so nicely that it was so organized. I was so pleased with how they did it. So I was really thankful for them because this place was jammed. Cars, I couldn't believe it. And then inside, I just loved, they essentially danced the whole night long. I don't know how. I went around twice and I had to stop. But these three times. So I had to stop. But and it's all ages. You know, I see people carrying their babies and they're dancing, and I see old people doing it as well. You know, older active adults. But I love to see the youth out there. And I see, I know so many from sports. I'm used to seeing them swing a bat or shoot a ball. And here I am watching them dance around in circles celebrating this event, which I thought was, which was really fantastic. That made me smile quite a bit. So it was well done. That was Saturday night. And I don't recall that there being any issues as a result of that, but that place was jammed. It was at the UES, and it was jammed all night long, which again, I commend everybody for keeping it so organized, which was nice. All right, I'm happy about the transitions of leadership going very well, where Craig Fallon took over for roads, and Rich Poplawski took over for Parks. So I'm very happy about that. Everything is going super with those guys. They are very responsive. I'm happy about that. Already getting, hearing nice things about both Craig and Rich and their teams. Everybody who's working there with them. So that's good. Nothing really caught my eye on the monthly reports, except for Craig saying he, what did I say? Vectored and jetted Ulner, which is great. So anyway, I commend those guys for keeping things up and keeping us moving. And I did see the shade tree notes. I know, Jim, you mentioned about more trees. There is a plan to put, I know it's not hundreds of thousands, but there is a plan for them to actually plant more trees on Board of Ed property to go around all our schools and plan out more trees at the schools. So I know that is something that they are working on at their next meeting, which I think is this week. Eddie is actually going to a conference to find out about some odds and ends about the planting and whatnot. So anytime they're doing things like that, I'm always happy to see that because it helps beautify our town. So they're looking to work on the schools and pretty them up for us, beautify them, which is nice. One other thing that they are working on as well is a memorial for Frank Bella. So I thought of Shade Tree, and then I said, what about Frank Bella? We never did. And then I saw it in the notes that they were planning a memorial for Frank, which is nice, which is one of the nice things that they enjoy doing, is celebrating and remembering our people. So that's all I have for you today. That's it. I took Donna's time too, so thank you. It wasn't any longer, but I appreciate it and progress. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Conti. I think you literally went around our whole borough in some capacity, so very thorough. Recreation, Councilwoman Novak.
Yes, Vicky, he beat us. Dance. No way
did he?
getting around it. Yep. Yep. I did my stint around there, and I left the floor and he just kept going. So that's all I'm going to say about this Saturday. We go every year, and Vicky and I even have purchased outfits.
Oh, yes.
So we,
Yeah, it reminds me of how long ago I purchased it. I put it back on every year. Like, wait a minute.
it's so nice to get out, with the public and really get out there with them, as opposed to just seeing them here or answering an email. So, okay. The county has gone out to bid to finally finish. Vic, you remember when you were still in charge of Public Works, when they were going to do that last section of Main Street that has the railroad ties in it, the last
Amen.
section that you go over and you shake like this.
Oh, my Lord.
It was supposed to be done during COVID and it got canceled. Jay told me today that they are out to bid on that. So that last section of Main Street will finally be finished.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I travel that road every
Keith will
day.
stay in.
I thought I needed a high-speed balance on my tires every time, but that's great news. I'm happy to hear that.
This weekend, we had the library opened their garden that they have memorialized to the Friends of the Library. Like I was saying, this town, it's their volunteers that keep this town going. So if you have the opportunity, our library, it's not like the libraries of old. That is an event center all on its own, whether you're bringing your 2-year-old nieces and nephews and grandchildren, or you just want to do what we used to do when we were younger, is get a book out. There is a beautiful garden now outside, reflection of and memorial of all of the friends of the library that have gone on. Okay. Oh, I attended the Trinity United Methodist Church 175th anniversary this weekend. I have never been in that church. It is the oldest church in the entire town. Art Rittenhouse was also there, and he's with the Historical Society and everything, and he said he'd never been in there. The organ is spectacular, and it's original. The pews are original. It was just really wonderful to be in there and to meet with the people and learn a part of history that I really was not aware of. So if you ever have the opportunity, I'm going to leave this with the clerk. If anybody wants to see it, it's the anniversary book, and it's got so much history in here about that church. It was very nice. I thank them for inviting me. Let's see, reminding everybody about the Trick or Trunk this weekend, 6 p.m. at the Jerry Est Complex. Also, not part of the boroughs, but the St. Stan's Car Show is this weekend. And, it's a really big event for the entire town. It's not just a car show. It's just about everything there, from tricky trays to trick or trunks to the car show. It's really an event that the entire town should be a part of. I wanted to ask if we could have the business administrator and the CME to look at, we've been hearing that people are hearing the range more often. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with some of the trees that were taken down over there, that the sound travels, because the range has always been there. They're using it more now, but people are hearing it all the time where they never heard it before. So I don't know what could be done as far as maybe using some of our tree bank money to soundproof it a little more.
We're exploring that, but also we may need to put up a physical sound attenuator out there. I've asked the police to start looking into that, moving into the new budget year.
Okay, you'll just keep me apprised? Okay, thank you so much. And what I'd like to say too is, while Mr. Conti was, I can tell you how impressed the kids were. My grandson was texting me saying, this guy, Vince Conti? Yeah, he's here talking to us. He's really impressive. So you really did impress them. And other than that, mayor, progress.
Thank you very much for that. How are we doing, just as a side note, in reference to our range? There was to be some monetary, increase here with
100,000, I believe.
100,000. So hopefully, if we have to do any type of construction over in that, we won't see that coming out of the taxpayers' dollars, because hopefully we'll be able to have that money used for
That's the
any
plan,
type of
yes.
bill. Okay. All right, wonderful. We're going to move over now to Water and Sewer Environmental, Councilman Zabrowski.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do promise I'm going to be extremely brief.
There's nothing left.
Well, there really isn't, but water and sewer progress. And I just want to also extend a thank you to Reverend Vinnie Frunze for the invitation to attend the 175th anniversary for the church. It really was a wonderful ceremony, and it's just gratifying to know that for 175 years, we've had just a wonderful just faith-based community that has flourished for that many years, and just very proud to know that. Other than that, progress, and thank you.
Thank you. And we're moving to Planning and Zoning. Council President Anoa, please.
Thank you, highly esteemed Mayor, and good evening to you all. Ultimately, some of the more recent updates come from our planning board, which we had the privilege to have our planning board meeting last week. And we hosted our Board of Education, where we conducted a capital review of the transportation complex, which we had brokered our arrangement with them regarding the land swap, as this was a huge issue of concern to our residents. ultimately, the capital review it's much different from the traditional planning board, review, in terms of the fact that, it was primarily to give our internal evaluation and not necessarily approve or deny. And, I think one of the major takeaways was, at the very least, the joy in acknowledging the delay in which I took for the Board of Education to come before the planning board to bring forward their initial plans for the development of the transportation complex. And I want to take a moment to also thank the residents that came out to express their concerns with this development, more specifically to how it's believed to affect the traffic and the ongoing congestion in our borough. I'm sure that there may be additional comments, during the public portion, but overall, these were, some of the major highlights coming forward regarding the transportation complex development by our Board of Education. We have a zoning board coming up again this week as well. So we are looking forward to, residents continuing to be active participants. And I would say that hopefully as the conversation continues, and I believe as many residents were invited to continue the conversation from our planning board into our council meeting here tonight, we can hopefully or potentially see how we can add more insight and more layers and lead to progress. So I think that's where I'll stick to it for now for the sake of time. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, our council.
I just want, can I ask you a question?
And one more thing also, to our Melrose folks, regarding the, to our 100-year anniversary of the fire department over there. I do want to express my my sincere thanks as well, and just express the joy of the historical significance of just the 100-year anniversary. It just speaks towards their endurance, and I was grateful for our mayor and council, appreciating them. I think it gives us a sense of pride, within our borough. And, ultimately, I just want to express my regards to those gentlemen, even the folks that served as far as up to 50 years. It really speaks towards a lot of leadership. And, just want to express my regards again. And, obviously, as a mayor and council, I believe that we'll continue to see how we can preserve that legacy. So I want to express my thanks again. And I believe there was already a comment regarding our planning board. I think I thought I heard Mr. Conti's voice.
Yeah.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, this is for whoever might have been there at the last zoning board meeting. So I met up with one of our residents the other day who was actually coming to the zoning board meeting with some other people to raise some issues. And by the time he had gotten here, the meeting was over. I think he said it was about 11 minutes. And it seemed like, people were coming out of the meeting, developers and business professionals were coming out of the meeting and leaving. So he was baffled by the fact that it was over by the time he got in there. And he continued to say, I think it was 11 minutes. And I don't know if, I suppose maybe they have nothing to talk about. Like, we have a lot to talk about, but I just wanted to see who was there, if it was you, Christian, or Jay, maybe, and you could speak to the fact that it was over and done with within 11 minutes. And did they actually handle any business in that? I haven't seen minutes or anything of that nature, so I can't say, but just looking for comments because this resident was fuming about the fact that it was, he got there with other people and then it was over before he even got inside.
Yeah,
So
I like to refer that to Jay. From my head, the last planning board, the last zoning meeting that I have in mind, I think it went very far into the evening. So unless I'm mistaken, Jay, maybe you can add a bit more reference here.
No, this is a zoning board meeting. There was one item on the agenda. It was a continuation of an application that was from a prior meeting There were objectors at the prior meeting. Those objectors withdrew their objections. So the board just completed that one application. They voted favorably, took care of their minutes and resolution adoption, and that was it. But I also spoke with the resident you're referring to, and he was coming to the zoning board to complain about an issue that is not really a zoning board issue.
Okay.
And I tried to explain that to him, that really, if he came earlier, the board wouldn't have been able to help him anyway.
And you steered him in a different direction?
I did, yes.
Okay. All right, that's good. So, okay, that's, I mean, a short agenda will do that.
And you know what, maybe you can, refer that, person to myself as well. Maybe, not saying that Jay wasn't clear, but maybe it wasn't received as well. So maybe I can add a bit more, maybe I can highlight or re-communicate that if possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I believe, thank you very much, Council President. Anything else to add, or you said that was it?
That's it for now, but I'd say that I believe we're still working towards progress. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So that brings me to my remarks. First of all, luckily, for me, I guess, every day is sort of legislators' day in the school. I get them a little bit earlier, obviously, in the middle school, but I will tell you, Councilman Conti, there's nothing more exciting than turning around and be able to engage the young people here within our community. You would be absolutely surprised. I am every single day when somebody comes up to me on my duty or sees me in the hallway or in the cafeteria for breakfast duty, or the questions and the ideas that our kids have and their interest is, it baffles me how bright they are and the way that they see our town and the way that they see our town currently and what they want to see in it. It is no doubt in my mind that our high school students are very actively engaged in watching what we do, because they tell me that. And they let me know, yes, believe it or not, since we went virtual, more and more of our high schoolers, middle schoolers, they actually know what we do here. I also have to say thank you so much to our business administrator, because before you had left us to go overseas, Glenn did a tremendous job, basically escorting, teaching, showing. I think you got a second calling for our multiply disabled group of students in the middle school. They came here to visit the borough. They also came to the police department as well, and a couple of other stops. We tried to get them in the Historical Society, but we didn't have the keys. And I know that Art does bring the kids there every year from the UES. They are so beyond grateful. They have written you a hand-delivered card. The teachers that accompanied them, the paraprofessionals. So these are students that, learning can be a little bit of a struggle for them, but when they were here, whatever you showed them completely made their day. That's all they talk about. And this is weeks later. They talk about the chairs. They talk about talking with you. They said that they promised they wouldn't break my gavel when they came here, or bring it back to me at the school. That was one of the things they were going to bring it back to me so I could have it in my classroom. So Glenn, you're up again for round 2, because they want to come back and hang out with you. They thought it was the absolute best experience. So I thank you for that. I do have a request actually from the VFW. The kids are great. They're my people. They're my people, I say all the time. So the VFW has reached out to me, actually, a couple of members, Stanley being one of them, I think a while back. They were interested in doing a motorcycle safety training class at their facility over on Journey Mill Road. They just asked if there was any direction from the council or approval so that they can do that. I actually believe Councilman Zabrowski, you may have they had mentioned to me that you've actually done one of the training courses. It would require them to bring in somebody. It's a certified company here. It's actually a local company that would be doing it. It's one of the driving schools, and I don't know much about the actual training class itself, but maybe you know a little bit more of what it entails.
I've been through that program, and it's extremely good program that allows novice or beginning motorcyclists to learn and appreciate what they're driving and how best to be able to utilize their skills as they grow on that. But I do know that this has been a discussion for mayor and council for some time. I know that Sean has taken a look at this from the perspective of what it may entail for the borough. From my understanding, it could require a deed modification, number one, and number two, if they were to go forward with this, they would have to actually have an application to the Board of Adjustment for a zoning variance as well. So I'm not sure if that's something they want to move forward with after that with that information.
So, yeah, would you please,
And Councilman Zabrowski was in touch with us numerous times on this. So there's a couple issues here. First, the property is not zoned to permit somebody to hold a commercial activity like a driving school. So they would have to either get the Board of Adjustment to change the zone, or you, as the governing body, could pass an ordinance and look at it that way. You do have the right to do that, assuming it's not spot zoning. You could take a look at it that way. Also, you have to look at it from the deed. The property was conveyed from the town to the nonprofit, the VFW, and the deed restricted the uses there. So, they got a windfall because it's obviously a very worthwhile organization, the VFW. So the town was doing a great thing when they deeded the property to them, but they put certain restrictions on the use, which makes a lot of sense. You don't want to deed the property to the VFW and find out a couple of years later it's a department store or something like that. And then finally, which is not really our business, but does it violate anything in the bylaws of the VFW, which is a nonprofit, and they have their own rules that they have to follow? We don't really have to worry about that, but I'm sure John and others have mentioned it to them. So that's really in their bailiwick, but those are just some of the issues that are out there. It's not as simple as just turning around and saying to the VFW, go for it. It is a little bit more complex than that.
okay, thank you. I honestly, I believe that that's all that they were looking for, was what was the direction of the council at this point, so that they know whether or not they can move forward with this, or whether they are not able to move forward with this. So that way they can basically communicate to the company that was going to be doing the training, or whether to keep them still in limbo. So at this point, I would have to just defer over to the council based on what we know. Is there anything that the council wants to do moving forward or not, just so that some type of information can go to our VFW so they know where they stand?
Here, I think if Sean's okay with it, he did put together a rather comprehensive memorandum, which identified all that, was very in simple language, and maybe we can forward a copy of that and say if they wish to discuss further, but I think that might be sufficient for the information they were requesting.
That sounds to me the most logical here. Does anybody on the council see any issue with that? If you've already done the work on it, that way they can understand what we're dealing with right now. And it sounds like it is not as easy as just, okay, like we've done, never anything's that simple. And maybe the council will entertain some of those changes. Maybe they don't want to entertain some of those changes. So he worked that out, Glenn, so that way, Sean, I personally was speaking with Stanley. I don't know who else the council had spoken with. Yeah, I kind of figured, but I would like them to get them the answers, just so that they know what they need to do. These gentlemen are phenomenal, and I'm so grateful to have the VFW here and the American Legion here. So I'd like to just be able to assist them if we can.
I have been driving Glenn crazy with this. As a matter of fact, I was emailing back and forth with Sal. Some of the changes were taken out of the deed, but it was a temporary deed just till the loan was paid off. This really gets involved. I have no problem, figuring out a way that, I mean, I know it's, even though they're nonprofit, they still have to raise some money so that they can do all of the good deeds that they do for the retired veterans and the disabled veterans. But the biggest thing is to make sure that the liability is covered, because this is not something like, they're just renting out the hall. There's a lot more liability involved in that. So, if they want to work on something like that, but like we said, it's not as easy as us just saying, okey dokey, it's going to be a lot more involved. So if we can work it out in some way that really protects the borough, then I'm for that. But the protection of the borough is the most important thing to me.
Okay, so I think we have direction, then the rest of the council is okay with that. We're going to have Sean reach out and communicate everything that seems to be issue and see if it gets resolved. Thank you so much. That does it for me at this time. We're going to, before we move to the public portion, I'm also going to defer over to you, Sean, as well, for a brief statement and something that we need to address as a town, just in multiple ways, and the way that we conduct our meetings.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So the mayor's about to initiate the public portion of the meeting when the public gets up to speak. And I just wanted to read something into the record. We know that there are some things going on in the world right now that have people on edge, as we've been watching in the news and even experiencing in our own lives in terms of people protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights. However, certain things are protected speech and certain things are not protected speech. So I'm going to read a statement. The borough encourages members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes during the public comment period. However, any speech that incites hate or racism will not be tolerated, and such speech is not protected by the First Amendment or the Open Public Meetings Act. Please be guided accordingly. If someone violates our policy, the mayor may ask for your removal, meaning the person that's engaged in the unlawful conduct, from the meeting. If you are attending via Zoom online, you may be silenced electronically. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate the statements. Before I open up to the public, I will just say this. I love our town, and I know that our residents are, for the most part, loving, caring, understanding, and the most empathetic people that you could actually have living together. What I was privy to, what I saw, what I heard online during the planning board meeting was some of the most disgusting, foul, inhuman things. It made me sick. And I had to talk to my children about that, and my children are older. There was no other word for it. It was just hate spewing directly out of one of our meetings. Whoever these individuals were, coming into our town, coming into our living rooms or our computers and our community, and there is no space for hate in Saraville. It literally brought tears to my eyes to turn around and hear what was being said. I cannot. There are absolutely no words. I've been an educator for 22 years. I've taught so many things in reference to history and Holocaust and genocide across the world. Regardless of where you feel about a particular issue, we're all human. That goes without saying. Until we start to look at one another and see each other for what we have in common and celebrate our differences and understand that there are certain things in the world that we can control and certain things that we can't, but we have to love one another. We have to care about one another. And I'm grateful for Sean for putting that statement together, but it pains me that he had to. So I think back to the words of Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor, Nobel Prize winner, Holocaust Museum founder, writer, and echoing in my mind is one of the things that he had said. And Glenn, as you return back from Poland too, the words that I have no right to sit idly by when the blood of my fellow man is being shed. You have to speak out against hate. And that's always stuck with me. I actually said it when we were here, when there was a march organized after the brutal murder of Mr. Floyd. And I said the same quote during that time as well. I don't care what the reason is, but to take life and to turn around and spew that that is okay and support those that believe in taking life because somebody is different or somebody doesn't fall under what we believe is just, it's sickening, it's heinous, it's wrong. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask once again, as I did at our last meeting, to just pause for a moment of silence, as right now in other parts of the world, you have individuals in both Palestine and Israel, as well as Ukraine as well, that right now their lives, children's, babies on both sides, right now are lost. regardless of where you stand on that issue. I ask that you bow your heads and that you reflect, and that we pray for all of those that are suffering right now. I thank you all for that. May peace come to the entire world, and may God continue to protect Saraville, our residents, and our children. With that, we will now move to open to the public, so you may speak on any and all issues. Please be respectful of time, because we do have a little bit more people here. I will allow you to speak on any issue. We do try to hold to that 5-minute time period. With new faces here, those that do like to come up often, just, I will call the newer faces up first. Anybody wish to speak at this time, either online or in person, please rise. It's okay. I know. That's because they're my usuals. Go ahead up. Thank you, sir.
Nicholas Menenti, 101 Kendall Drive.
Un-
And thank you for that, Mayor. I was at the planning board meeting. It was disgusting. So what I would like to speak on is what the council president was alluding to. I was one of the people at the planning board meeting. I didn't speak at that meeting, but I want to speak today. I got a little more information. So I like to voice my objection to the school bus depot building being built on the wildlife preserve to the rear of Laurel Park. I am in no way against the building of the school bus depot. I understand they need one. And according to the Dr. Labby, the buses are currently housed on multiple locations in different areas. There's a plus and a minus to that. So right now, the proposal is to put them on the 128, well, part of the 120 acres that were donated to the town by the DuPont Corporation in 2008. This donation was meant to be a wildlife preserve open space to the public. The entire project was meant to be open space to the public, not just part of it and some of it for use down later on down the road. Unfortunately, from the administration in 2008 to this day, this has never been put on the books as far as the master plan was concerned. And it was never put on as a open space property. It was maintained as industrial. And because of that, that's why we're here today getting ready to put a bus depot on this property. Two issues came out of the planning board. And the only reason these two issues came out of the planning board was because of prompting of one of the planning board members. Otherwise, the architects from the Board of Education never brought this up, and it wouldn't have come out unless questions were asked. Number one, no comprehensive environmental study was ever done on this proposal for this property. We're talking a wooded area, and nobody thought that an environmental impact study would be needed at all. I can't fathom that. The land was donated, like I said, for open space. Several thousand trees were just cut down the year before, right up the road, maybe 100 yards up the road for that monstrosity that's going up there, or that's there now already. And now, according to the architect from the Board of Ed, they're looking on this 7-acre property that you're leasing them to take down at minimum another 400 trees. So yeah, my backyard faces the woods. I'm on Kendall Drive and I hear the pistol range. I'll be honest with you, it's not that bad. You just hear the rapid fire every once in a while, but I've been hearing that for years, and that's not even nearly as close as this bus depot is going to be. So the 400 or so more trees that are, proposed to come down, it's going to make the sound travel even further because we're taking down another big chunk. This property was donated in 2008 after remediation was done to this property. This property was part of a major cleanup site from the Department of Environmental Protection that DuPont was forced to clean up. One of 4, 5, 6, 7 different sites throughout the state of New Jersey that DuPont was responsible for. But this was the site here in town that what we're concerned with because we all live in Sayreville. I'm here over 30 years. I'm not new. I raised my children here. My wife and I raised our children here. So we've been here a long time. And, you know, when I moved here, I was told that those woods back there were meant to be, DuPont had to maintain them as a buffer between themselves and the residential areas. Okay, that sounds good, but nobody said anything that there was toxic waste in those grounds. Well, the remediation was done. Yes, it was done, but DuPont is ordered by the DEP to continue monitoring that site because there is still groundwater contamination there. And if there's groundwater contamination, that contamination travels throughout the soil. So I've been in touch with the DEP. I have correspondence going back and forth with them. I'm waiting for a solid answer as to what the clause is insofar as being able to build on that site, what restrictions were given to that site. So I don't have an answer on that, but there were restrictions as far as that. Again, would it be in the DEP site? You have construction workers who are going to be tearing down trees, bringing up soil, kicking dust in the air. You have Board of Ed employees. If there turns out that there is still contamination on this site
That's
somewhere-
5 minutes. If you could wrap it up, please.
Oh, absolutely, not a problem.
I would like to have you finish that, please.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
just real quick. Yeah. I mean, we're worried. We live in Laurel Park. We're close. We're a residential area right there. And we're worried about any contaminants that might be kicked up from construction being done on this site. 7 acres is a lot. If you look at the schematic the Board of Ed provided, that area is almost as big sky view wise as the Lifelong Learning Center. So just drive past the Lifelong Learning Center and look at the scope of that area that's cleared out. That's going to be the bus depot. So, you know, I mean, I can get into traffic. Maybe somebody else will talk about that, but traffic is a real concern too. Kendall Drive, Laurel Park area is a big cut through right now. And I'm going to cut this short real quick. They're saying 72 buses we have right now. The capacity of the facility is 85 buses. So we're looking at somewhere between 72 and 85 buses that are going to be going to that facility every day, coming from that facility every day, 5 days a week, maybe 6 on Saturday if there's special events going on. Ernston Road, Bordentown Avenue is backed up now. I've sat in traffic where I'm sitting by the gas station on Ernston and Washington just to get up to Locust where I have to cut into my development. And that's now. Can't throw another 80 buses on top of that, all going to one central location. Again, right now they go to multiple locations, but now you're centralizing them to one location. You're not going to make me believe that when a bus driver, or let's take the bus drivers out of this, a resident, someone, they get to Locust Lane, they're not going to make the right out of frustration and cut down Kendall Drive just to get out of that traffic. They're going to do it. It happens now. It'll just be multiplied. So yeah, a comprehensive traffic study should have been done too. So your tenant, the Board of Education, didn't do their due diligence. I'm requesting that you reconsider this lease agreement. There's got to be other areas of town. I know I'm a little late to the ball game here and that, you know, this happened a long time ago, over a year ago. But again, I didn't know about it. A lot of people didn't find out about it. I get phone calls from the police department. I get text messages when Minnesink is being worked on, when things are happening around town. I get phone calls from Dr. Labby, robocalls, when there's a snow day. I don't even have kids in the school anymore. My kids are all grown and out of the house. But I get the phone calls and I don't mind the phone calls. I never got notified about this. And I didn't know about it till just recently, till the planning board, till just before the planning board meeting. Please consider other areas of town. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate all of the work you've done. Thank you. I know there's more residents that wish to speak, I'm certain, on that topic. Come on up.
My name is Joylyn Ryan, 129 Kendall Drive. I spoke last time, so I'm going to make this very short. I think we opened up a bigger problem by proposing this site because I don't really think the entire community and maybe the board, I don't know, understands how polluted this land is. There's a project manager in charge of this land, in charge of this land. I don't want to give her name or number. It's public television. I don't know if that would be appropriate, but I can give it to you.
DuPont project manager, or are you referencing?
No,
Okay.
no, Parlin. So this is
Parlin.
an article that states the last study was done by DEP in 2019, and that the land, unfortunately and sadly, is severely polluted.
Can you pass that, please? to
Yes, and
our-
on the
okay.
first page on there is her contact information.
Thank you.
So they're going to be opening up an investigation into this land again. They were never supposed to walk away from it. They were supposed to, they had an agreement that it would be a continuous cleanup because that type of pollution, sadly, never disintegrates. It just doesn't. And in the back there, I went back there with my neighbor who's been here a very long time. He's a veteran. And the copper plates from DuPont are still in back of our homes at Kendall. And part of the pollution was the copper dust. So actually, to be fair to our community, we need to get someone in there and to continue what DuPont promised to do, which was to have a continuous remediation of that property for eternity. And I don't know, like you could speak to the project manager there, what their plans are currently. But there is no question about the fact that the land is still compromised. So I'm worried about the children with a bus depot and a community room. I'm really, really concerned about it. And the parents should be also, because why would you put anything on that land? And that land currently has lawsuits against it and litigation by various groups, litigation ongoing. So now you're going to put a building where there's land that already has litigation on it currently for pollution. Why in the world would anybody do that? And this isn't about me, because it's gonna be sort of like in back of me and to the left. So I don't quite frankly know if I'd even see it. I mean, the trees are coming down, but there's a buffer, I believe. It's not about that. It's about the safety of our children. And it's really concerning. I mean, there has to be other property that's not compromised with pollutants that would be a far better choice for their health. And that would go with any building on there. And I can only recommend that somebody talk to the zoning board and change that from industrial because, or residential too. There shouldn't be any houses built there.
It's not zoned as residential.
No,
It's
it's zoned
industrial still. I
Right.
did get that information and that research that it was never moved into the when DuPont turned around and in essence gifted that land over. That was never changed over to what it should have been, which was open space or
Well,
something
maybe it's time to
comparable.
do that, only because
Yeah.
let's say you do put an industrial building on it. You still have to have workers in that building.
Yeah.
And this is already polluted land with litigation ongoing.
Yeah.
So that's concerning for the whole community and costly into the future. Should there be more litigation because of the problems that currently exist there in the past and currently? Okay, so that's something whoever began the project, I don't know who it was, but whoever began the project perhaps was not, they weren't aware of this maybe. It's certainly is possible. And they should be made aware of it by someone in positions of authority. Well, thank you very much. Thanks so much and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, and I'm sure there's more people that want to come up. I just asked Glenn before this meeting, a few hours before this meeting, regarding the lease agreement, because the last that we as a council were updated in reference to the lease agreement, there's no, as far as I'm aware, we don't have a signed lease agreement at this
Correct.
point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We do have a memorandum.
We do not have a signed lease agreement. What do we have currently?
Memorandum of understanding, but we do not have a lease agreement.
Okay, so right now, the fact that you're here today and before us today, right now, please don't think that you're not timely. Okay, because that lease agreement has not been executed by the council yet.
Correct.
I know that the council had many questions the last time that this was discussed with the council. And I don't believe that the council had received some of the questions and the inquiries that they had. You're bringing up additional points. And I'm concerned, and I think, Mary, I can hear you also echoing what I'm already thinking in my head. We have to be very careful. We have to tread very lightly here as a borough. Because if there is the potential for, again, environmental contaminations, already known lawsuits due to illness and health hazards, and this is our lease agreement, and we're turning around and saying, okay, we're going to enter into this with you, we could potentially be opening up a whole scope of potential harm and to us as a borough. And this is part of what this process was supposed to be. Is, I think that within this process and the intent of that initial meeting where the borough and the Board of Education came together was not necessarily, I know my intention was not to finalize an agreement, but was to get people in a room together. Because what was happening is our borough was being inundated with questions, being told that we needed to fix this problem. And people were going to the Board of Education meeting. So it was this whole, I call it the Wizard of Oz moment where the scarecrow turns around and goes like that. Everybody was pointing fingers at different people. What I pushed for, and we did, we had a joint meeting where it was the borough and the Board of Education together in one room. Because the residents were the ones that, quite frankly, were getting the runaround because they were being told one thing from one group, one thing from another group, and no one was getting the answers. In that meeting, and I thought it was a productive meeting, the Board of Education and the council, we requested to see, we wanted to help. The people of Morgan, absolutely the bus depot site that was being considered, that was going to be put through, it wasn't even being considered, it was on the board report. They were going to turn around and put that bus depot over at Slover School. I mean, that's insane. And we heard what the residents had to say, and we said, let's work together in good faith in order to try and find some other more appropriate space. There were several pieces of property that were put on the table because it was basically, we asked for an inventory from CME. Jay, you were able to provide that. So that way, because the Board of Education said, well, we can't afford the purchase land, we need to be given land by the borough. So we're like, okay, what do we have? What can we potentially do to help provide you with space in order to address this need? Because there's no doubt, absolutely, there's a need for this. We're not going to deny that. There's a need. But we wanted to work together to find the most appropriate site. And there was discussions that the Board of Education was interested in the site on Journey Mill Road, the former landfill site. You want to talk about contamination? Please. That was a disaster and a half. Plus there was a developer that was already interested in that land that was going to take the liability off of the borough. They were going to be responsible for cleanup. That assisted us because we were currently already paying for cleanup over there. And they were able to make that a usable space. They were able to turn around and make something of that, remove us of our liability, and bring in a significant amount of tax dollars. So that site was not something that the borough was able to turn over. And I understand, and I know that that was something that the Board of Education really wanted. It just wasn't something that was going to work. The other two sites that were of interest was the Lower Laurel Park ball fields, which were closer over to by the well field and by the shooting range. And then it was the upper piece. Those were the other two areas that were being considered. There was reasons why both sides went back and forth. A long time ago, there was discussion about the lower ball fields potentially becoming a site for a community center. That died, okay, but there was discussions on that at that time. And the proximity to the Center for Lifelong made that site look kind of appealing for the potential of a community center. Clearly, that never came to fruition. And the only other site that was left on the table for discussion at that point became that Laurel Park site. I grew up in Laurel Park. Grew up on Cedar Terrace. My parents are still there. Okay, so this, by all means, I'm there every single day with my parents. Those that are coming up from Kendall Drive, I know what you live with every single day. I rode my bikes on there. My kids play over there still to this day, and now my nieces. Laurel Park, I'm concerned already for the cut-through issues that we're going to have potentially with the tractor trailers from the warehouses. I'm doing everything in my power to eliminate that, but I don't know how much success we have. Now hearing this, now that meeting ended, and this was the site that was being discussed. It made its way up to the top. But that didn't mean that it had to be this site. Okay, there was discussions, well, we can't afford to turn around and actually level the land, and what's the issue with this? Our former business administrator said, you know, if you do need help with development of that in some way, if there's some issues with tree removal, we might be able to help you with that. We would be willing to assist to a certain degree. But there were no plans before us. There was no architectural work. This was an active discussion that still needed to continue. But that active discussion didn't continue completely. It kind of was like, okay, this is where we are. I feel like it resurrected itself. I don't know. Now, how long would you say, Mary, or?
We kind of said to Glenn, get
Get it done.
it done.
We hadn't heard anything for a significant amount of time. For whatever reasons. I mean, I'm not faulting the Board of Education, but we hadn't heard anything for quite a while. And then Glenn worked hard on trying to make that communication happen. The lease agreement had come before us to review and look at, but there was a lot of unanswered questions. Glenn, I believe that you reached out to try and get some of those answers.
Yeah, there was an extraordinary delay in getting some of the things that we needed from engineering to look at the plot and whatnot, and we're still getting caught up on a lot of that. So we're not in a position where we would even imagine endorsing that lease over to the council to consider at this point.
So this is an opportunity, another example of where our residents are extremely helpful. Because you're bringing things to myself, and it sounds like to many of the council people, that we did not even realize how deep and how long this history goes. Now, I'm certain that the Board of Education, in hearing our meeting tonight, they're going to have concerns too about environmental issues. They would have to. Okay, I hope, I don't know, I'm trying, maybe I'm living with these rose-colored glasses, or maybe I'm sleep deprived, I don't know. But I would like to think that they care enough about their employees that they don't want to turn around and see individuals ill. And I hope that they care enough about the residents of this town whose kids go to school and whose people work there to disturb this and to potentially cause serious health issues. I watched my grandfather die from mesothelioma. He worked over at Carborundum. I mean, this is.
Well, that's one of the
This
reasons
is
why
not-
we're doing it for their employees as well, to give them a complex and.
No, I get that.
So
I know,
would
yeah.
Imagine they'd be concerned quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, their issue for wanting to, listen, the bus depot that's currently there, the mechanics, that's not a safe environment at all.
This must make them pause.
Yeah. So I don't begrudge them for wanting to turn around and get a facility like this. But we have to make sure that this is the right fit and that this is safe. And now I know myself, the rest of the council, I don't want to speak for you, but do you concur? I mean, Mr. Conti, Donna, in light of this information, I mean, your thoughts? I do think, Mary, did you want to add?
I'm really surprised that we even took possession of property that had environmental contaminants in it. That shocks me. I wasn't on the council at the time. I was unaware of it. I know before we even brought a list of properties that we owned, we went over the deeds and everything to see if there was any restrictions in it. We wouldn't have even brought this up if there was. There wasn't anything. I'm I'm quite flabbergasted that we even took possession of this property.
I'm curious because from what I understand, and this was something I'd written down from somebody else that was speaking on a different issue. The fact that this property was in essence gifted to us, but there was specific language, it appears, from DuPont stating that this should have been placed into an open space. No, that was not it. Jay, do you recall?
Madam Mayor, the deed does not have any restrictions.
It doesn't have it.
Please.
Okay.
As far as contamination, soil contamination was cleaned up prior to this property being accepted by the borough. Borough was aware of the groundwater contamination. That's about 80 feet below grade. And DuPont still has those obligations for cleanup of the property. So the borough is not liable for the contamination that still falls on DuPont.
Right now.
Correct.
But in the event that we turn around and take this and then potentially lease it over to somebody else where that,
It's theirs. It's DuPont's responsibility. Contamination, groundwater contamination on a property is DuPont's.
I don't know what was said at the time we accepted this property, but I do know that before we even presented any of these things to the Board of Ed, that we looked into exactly what the deed said. Because, and there was nothing in there that said that we couldn't, lease it to them for their use. So.
Mhm. This is interesting. I feel like there's a lot of layers to this, and I feel like every day, I'll go over here to Councilman Zabrowski. I want to give every council person an opportunity to speak on this.
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm a bit shocked that this land was even part of a discussion to begin with, had we had those reservations, and I'm not really sure why it wasn't brought up earlier. With that said, one of the things I think we do need to do is do a better job before we do offer property in the future. I think we have to have a pause because I think there were still other steps that had to be done in the process. I think DuPont also still had a say as to whether this was a legitimate, they had to sign off on approval. And obviously the issue of the contaminant. So I don't want to say yes or no at this stage, other than this. I don't want our communities, our neighbors, to start to think, in particular our neighbors in Morgan, to start to think that if we don't utilize this property, that
Yes.
it's going to ping pong back to them. Because that's not the case. I think we all very much believe that we need to have good conversation, collaboration with all our communities and our neighborhoods, as well as the Board of Education, to find the appropriate location for a bus depot, if in fact that has to be built. I'm still surprised that we're in the busing business. Many years ago, when I was on the Board of Education, we got out of the busing business because it wasn't lucrative, it wasn't economically efficient, so I'm very surprised by it. But be that as it may, I really think we do need to make an extreme pause to get the accurate information and then be able to come back together as a group and bipartisanly with all our neighborhoods and come up with the right location and bring that Board of Education and Dr. Labby into that discussion early on so that we don't get to this place again.
And Councilman Zabrowski, you bring up a good point, because this was something that I had asked probably close to 100 times, which was, does DuPont have to have a say in this? Because this land was gifted to us by them. And do we still have to bring them into that conversation? That was my understanding as well, that DuPont still needed to take a look at whatever that use was going to be. Is that accurate, Jay?
Clause that's very specific in the deed that indicates you need to present whatever the use is to DuPont. They have a 90-day review period, then they can make comments on that.
Okay, yeah, so that still exists as well. So there's a whole lot of steps here that still need to occur. Which again, I'm glad that you're here. And I'm glad that we now know additional things. Councilman Balca, former Board of Ed member too on this, so.
In a more unique situation because I was on the Board of Ed side when we.
Yeah, so you bring a lot of light probably to this.
I was against the Morgan site and because it wasn't right. I'm definitely against this site now too, in light of this extra information. I mean, it's no doubt, it doesn't make sense to put it there if there's contamination, if DuPont has to prove it. We just have to work harder, find the right spot for it and hopefully get this thing going someday.
And I think that, listen, one thing that we are good at is coming up with eyes all open. We can find, I'm certain that there's a place that we can turn around and do this where our residents aren't basically put the ones to bear the burden here. where your lives are impacted in a negative fashion. I don't know if that site exists in Saraville, or I don't know if that site exists elsewhere, but I think we could find it. And that was my tone, even with that meeting with the Board of Education, was we're going to work together to do our best to find a way to deal with this issue. Again, a lot of the decisions right now do have to, and a lot of the questions do fall at the Board of Education level, but at least from the things that we're able to answer, we're going to be open, transparent, and get everything that we can. Anybody else from the public have any additional information? Yeah, of course.
I just want to say one other thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Please remind me that I have to call on Council President Anoha
yeah,
as
I
well.
know.
I apologize, Christian.
I just want to say that I wish that the Board of Education had, before they made the decision, as the chief, former chief said, getting involved in busing situation again, when I remember when the Board of Education realized that it was fiscally not good to be in the busing situation, that there were some small routes that they kept on board. Most of the rest of it was contracted out. But they made that decision and bought a tremendous amount of buses and were getting fined by the DEP for where they were storing them before we were even asked anything about this. And again, when they're planning on doing something like that, I wish they'd, bring this to our attention before a lot of decisions were made that put us in a really tight spot between, I don't want the residents in this town to be fighting with each other because, oh, if you don't put it there, they're going to put it here. We're going to try our best to find an alternate spot for this. So I don't want the residents in Morgan to be concerned that the Board of Education will drop this back in their lap. Thank you, Mayor.
No, thank you. I don't want to speak on behalf of the Board of Education. I can speak based on a parent that has watched the Board of Education for a very, very long time in reference to the busing. I will say that times have definitely changed in reference to busing. The cost of contractors now, because of the lack of bus drivers that exist within the state and beyond, has drastically increased the cost of what a contracted route is. That I have seen, if you follow the Board of Education's report, look at their billing. I absolutely can understand why the Board of Education is different in their opinions to what it was years ago. Our town has grown, but also, again, the contracting business for busing has changed, and it's been extremely expensive in order to get those contractors to cover these routes. I don't necessarily disagree that the idea of the Board of Education is to take ownership of the busing transportation. One of the things that always makes me feel good is there's a big difference between a contracted bus driver that is coming from anywhere, any place, versus our own bus drivers, that the majority of them are residents that live here, that we see and that know our children. There is a difference. So I understand the complicated circumstance and situation the Board of Education is in and the cost that it is on the taxpayers from that component of their budget. I'm certain Councilman Balco, you would concur with those statements.
Yes, the prices when I left the board that's why we started buying buses, because it was so much cheaper. You could control the drivers. I remember once we had a bus driver who couldn't speak English from a contracted
Ended
route,
up in a whole nother
and
town.
they got lost for 2 hours with this busload of students. I mean,
And the parents were terrified and the kids were terrified. Our police officers did an amazing job in turning around, locating that bus and getting those kids back. So, I remember that day. And we've had circumstances like that in the past. I'll tell you right now, I've got students that I see every morning their buses are late, and it's because the bus driver has no idea still where they're going. And those contractors, they could be different from one day to the next. And it's also different because they're not our hires. When I say our hires, the Board of Education hires. When the Board of Education has a bus driver, those are vetted out and they're hired by the Board of Education. That's not the case with the contractors. But I'm not here to talk about Board of Education issues. I just want you to know I do understand the need for it, but we need to do a better job of finding the right spot for it. So I have two online. I have one more that I'll take one more here. Bill, come on up, and then I'll go to our online participants.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Of course.
Bill Henry, 75 Orchard Street. I'm a committee member on the open space. And a lot of the open space that's available for us to purchase has been rezoned and we can't even purchase it anymore. The area over there by Laurel Park is a beautiful area. It was donated to the borough for the residents of the borough. And they were talking about putting nature trails on there, keeping it as open space. I never heard anything about building anything over there. But there are areas possibly that you could look at. I don't even know, maybe the warehouses that are being built. Maybe you could lease some space from there and use the bus depot over there. Or I know there's some property down on the Main Street extension. There's like 7 acres down there that you might be able to purchase, or MCUA owns that, but maybe come with an agreement that's not going to be that much, and you can give them something to offer. I mean, as a trade. But I think the residents here, they make great points about that property not being developed. So not reiterating any of those points, I just wanted to say, try to find other spots and talking to Board Ed to see if they could talk to those people.
Yeah, one of the things that we did, thank you for that,
Yeah, I was
Bill.
just going to mention too, I was going to put a call into Ron Rehos and Joe Cryan, the director of MCUA, to see if there could be a possibility to move this thing forward.
That would be great.
Thank you.
I will say, Jay, that prior to the Board of Education joint meeting that we had, we did ask that CME compile an entire list of borough-owned properties. And I don't know if they included some of the county properties.
Mayor did not. It was Sarah property, Board of Education property, and Saraville property, and you had certain criteria, greater than 5 acres, not in a residential zone.
Yeah.
A total of 8 parcels that were put up for discussion.
Yes, thank you. There were 8 total that were brought up for discussion. So this was like a very big meeting and there was a lot of pieces. Now, the Board of Education was given those properties in advance so that way they could look at it from their perspective as well, from their eyes, from their needs.
That's correct, Mayor. And what happened at the meeting was actually the mayor and council recommended Journey Mill Road. Board of Education did not want Journey Mill Road. They recommended, as you indicated, the southern side of Cheesequake, and it was settled on the north side.
Thank you for clarifying that. I remember that the landfill site was up there at one point. Like I said, I remember those 3 particular pieces, knowing that there were others that were put on the table. The MCUA properties and so forth weren't put on the table because they weren't ours, quite frankly. And we didn't want to entertain a discussion for something that we wouldn't have been able to speak on as a borough. And that's why we did not do that. So I think that now everything should be on the table. Everything. I'm going to go to one online and then I'll call up for additional comments from over here. So I have the first one that's listed. It just comes up as owner. We can bring you into the public. We just need a name and address, please. You're in the public, so you can give your name and address. Are they unmuted? You just need to unmute. There we go. It looks like they're unmuted from here. I see that it says chat next to the name on my side, but if this person that's listed as owner online can hear me, you are in the public portion. I'll give you about another minute to try to solve whatever technological issue you're having, then I'll go to our second speaker online. Hello? You see anything on your end? Okay, so we're going to turn around and go to the second individual that's on the online list. So that's Eileen Pabon. You're in the public portion.
Hello. My name is Eileen Pabon. Do I have to give my address?
Yes, please.
155 Norton Street in South Amboy, New Jersey, the Morgan section of Sayreville. I just want to, I'm not speaking because I do not have the authority at all to speak on behalf of the Board of Ed, but I am on the Board of Ed, and I served with Dan Balka, who is now the councilman, and I was at that meeting when we met, together, and that meeting was recorded online. So if anybody really does not recall what was said, I would really suggest that you go back and watch that video, because everything that was said is was recorded. With the school bus, I also want to remind everybody that the reason that the school bus problem exists, the bus depot problem exists, is because our children were really, and Dan could attest to this, that we discussed this at many board meetings, that the children were really in a danger. Those third-party bus companies were hiring anybody and everybody to just to be able to do the routes. They had bus drivers who knew nothing about Sayreville. They didn't know how to get to the stops. The children were actually telling them how to get to their houses. Now, as a parent, I would be very scared that my child would be on a bus like that. And with many people complaining, if you recall, people complained about the late pickups, kids were on the bus for 2 hours before they even got to their bus stop. And this was a daily occurrence. This was not once in a while. This was happening every single day. And we had no control because we didn't own the routes, we did not own the buses, and we did not employ the bus driver nor the aide. And I think that what the Board of Ed did, and I wasn't on the board when this started, is that they made a very responsible decision to protect the children of Sayreville and start buying buses. They weren't buying buses because they wanted to get into transportation or they wanted to be, hey, we got buses. They did it because it was necessary. And I really appreciate you, Mayor, for saying what you said, because you're exactly right. There was a need for those buses, and those days gone by when we were all in school busing are long gone. And the other thing that Dan mentioned was there was bus drivers who did not even speak English. And honestly, we are obligated as the keeper of the gate, if you want to call it that, to make sure that our children do not undergo these circumstances anytime. And we have really done a good job on the board that started it and the board that I'm on that has continued it, to make sure the children don't, and that parents are not worried. And now, people have short-term memories. Everybody really has forgotten why this all has happened. It's not because, oh, we want to have a bus depot. We want to have a bus depot. It's because we need it. And it's not something that you guys can kick to the future. You guys have to make a decision, because those buses are still around. We're being sued by people. Somebody filed a suit against the Board of Ed for parking the buses on the side of the property. So that has all changed. We have buses all over every single thing. And I think at one point, Councilwoman Roberts had suggested that we use the parking lot up by across the street from Nunzio's as a bus depot, which would never be allowed. We don't own that property. So we really need to get realistic about this. We need to face reality. We cannot kick this down the curb. And the truth is, the past president of the council was the one who stopped us from, Dr. Labby had suggested that the area that had already been, no trees on it had a field. And Councilwoman Marr, I think her name was, she said, oh no, we are going to put a community center there. But then Councilwoman Novak said, well, we have never discussed putting a council center there, a community center. So I have a very good memory. The tape also is the real, that's like the Bible of everything, the video. So please go back and look at it to see what was discussed. Many of those sites were not feasible. They were near water. You can't put brand new buses in a whole bus depot where it's going to flood. So, you have to be, when you're looking for these sites, because it sounds like that's what you're going to do, make sure it's a viable site that is not going to cause another neighborhood to say, not in my backyard, because no matter where we go, that's exactly what's going to happen. So, please be deliberate and be, don't think we have time for this. We have to get this bus depot going. So please, consider that. As a citizen, I want every child of Sayreville to be safe when they get on a bus. And the way to continue that is to maintain our bus fleet. So thank you and have a good evening.
All right, thank you. I appreciate those comments. I'm gonna call up some of our favorite, oh, actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Robinson, I'm gonna go with the young lady next to you.
Evelyn Smith, 124 Kendall Drive.
Hello.
I've lived in my house since I was 6 years old. We bought it from my parents. And so I am very aware of everything that has gone on in Laurel Park, including the line of cars that I couldn't even get out of my driveway when they were working on the Ernston Bridge.
I remember that.
Because, oh,
It was
it was
awful.
like, I couldn't even get out of my driveway. We were all the way up Kendall.
Absolutely. It was
Um,
crazy then. It was really
But,
crazy.
my main thing, I feel that we have been kind of tricked by the Board of Education, because at the meeting the other night, the planning board meeting the other night, first of all, they claimed that DuPont had already signed off on this location being used for this, which now you're saying that there was no, that they didn't, that the Department of Education signed off on it, that it was a binding agreement on the lease, and that there was no way that they could, at least the planning board could not say, no, you can't do it. Okay. This thing was originally from May of last year. We were never told anything about this. I mean, I live right there. I think, I would have heard something. We fought a development behind Kendall Drive many years ago. The mayor of South River, Mr. Krenzel, was our lawyer, and we fought it and we won. Okay. And so I want to, I feel the same way about this. The other thing is, if there is contamination there, and, it can be airborne contamination, when you're pulling out all these trees, when you're digging foundations, okay, you are spreading this contamination, this pollution throughout the air and into our development. Okay, not to mention, the 72 buses starting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It would be like Raceway Park, gentlemen, start your engines, and, it's just, it's a bad place for it. You'd have to go back and find out somebody who was actually involved in taking over the property from DuPont's back when it was, because I know it didn't make it into the deed,
Right.
but it was part of the discussion that this was land for open space. Whoever it was that didn't include it in the deed when they drew up the deed, it's their fault. Okay.
No, I appreciate that. I did receive, I'm so grateful for our residents that send me a lot of things. So I did receive a news article in reference to that, and it included the acceptance of the land from the previous mayor. And it included a lot of information. A councilman that was on the council was extremely excited. He's a big fighter and proponent for open space and for nature preserves. So I do think that we all know who we're talking about, probably. Stanley, once again. And he's always my first person to go to when things like this, sometimes my second person maybe to go to.
Right.
So
The other thing, and the other reason that I feel that they were trying to slide something past us without letting us know, probably because they know that we fought a development behind Kendall Drive once before and we won. They didn't want to let us know until it was, what they considered a done deal. And then it was like, well, sorry, you're stuck with us. But on the state of New Jersey Department of Education, Division of Finance, Office of School Facilities, on the schedule, in number 5 is submission to planning board, which was supposed to be done last year. According to the architect or whatever he is, oh yeah, well, we did send it out, but then they said, oh no, we didn't get it. And so we sent another one and we still didn't get it. And then another one and we still didn't get it. And nobody knew anything about this until about a month ago, when all of a sudden it was, oh yeah, look at this. This is the plans. We're going to put all of these things up in the woods there.
Process is key here. Now, I saw
Yeah.
that part as well.
Right, and
I saw
that is definitely, I mean, that's what I was going to say was, this is your, Mr. Sposata the other night said that all they can do is look at A through Z, and if A through Z is filled, then they can't stop it. Well, A to Z isn't right here, okay? They missed an important thing, which is notifying these bodies that this was happening. Okay.
Now, I will
That-
say, Mr. Sposato brought up many very good points, and it made it very clear and easy for, I think, the residents to follow and understand, really just going down the points of what the goals and the missions are of the planning board and the master plan in reference to the development and what their goals are for setting forward. Very, very poignant and very specific. There were at least 3 points that he made, from the traffic to the environmental study, and then obviously what you had mentioned as well.
Between 72 to 85 buses, plus 700 tractor trailers, which is what the projection is for the warehouse on Cheesequake Road, and they can't go down Minnesink. The buses can, but the tractor trailers are not allowed because the bridge is too low. They can't get under it. Okay, they already had a case where a tractor trailer tried to, and he got stuck, and they had to clear everything on Minnesink so he could back up to
Oh,
get
that's
out
a-
of there,
That's an
okay?
occurrence that's often. I get stuck behind that often.
Yeah.
At Main Street too. Yep, by the police department.
Yeah, there
So
should be a sign before it saying
I've been f-
low bridge. you
I've been
know?
fighting for that, and especially with the warehouses, I've discussed having to have signage, having to have clearance notices prior to even turning onto Minnesink from all angles. When it comes to Washington Road, that should be posted, and even when you're actually on Cheesequake Road, because obviously there's only one way out there. That's why you cannot go left. We cannot allow those warehouses, tractor trailers
go left. No.
to make that left out of their facility.
No way.
And let's face it, that Conrail Bridge isn't looking too healthy.
No.
So I don't think it can sustain a couple of blows from a tractor trailer, and then we're gonna have some bigger issues.
I mean, I spend most of my time at home now, so maybe I don't have to worry as often about trying to get out of my neighborhood. But if you do this, I'll never get out of my neighborhood.
Right. No,
Okay.
I agree. I battled it my whole life over there. So
Okay.
thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you for listening.
You're very welcome. Don't hate me, Jim. One more thing. We think this owner person is back. So, owner, can you hear us, and are you able to unmute at this time?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can. Thank you. Name and address, please.
My name's Stanley Drawl, 121 Bezette Street.
Have your ears been ringing, Stanley?
No, actually, I was listening in earlier about the VFW, but
I've
decided
evoked your
to listen
name
to this
multiple times.
conversation.
I'm glad you're on.
Well, first I'll discuss real quick the current discussion. I spent about 6 years working on open space, and Jay can attest that he and I got stuck many times in the SUV from CME in those properties in the rear in the mud. So the lower part that was donated by DuPont, I was heavily involved in that decision. And that was definitely donated by DuPont to be used as open space, the lower portion. And as you said, there are numerous articles from newspapers, and it was on the news. And whoever dropped the ball, I was told by the BA at the time it was going to put on the RICO, I think it's called, the Resource for Recreational Properties.
Was that on the Rossi you were talking about?
Or the Rossi, yeah.
Okay, go ahead,
But-
Stanley.
But evidently it never got on there, but I was told at the time that it was going to be put on there. But it was definitely always meant to be open, used as open space. The only building they ever talked about was possibly putting something like an outdoor latrine for hikers or something. And that was about it. Now, the upper property happened later on, but I know that was a nature preserve. There used to be metal plates on probably about every third tree along Cheesequake Road. I don't know if they're still up there, but they were very obvious that this was a nature preserve. Can you hear that?
Yeah, we can hear that, Stanley, and the residents in the room can hear that as well.
So
And
I'm
we're
sure a
getting
lot of other people
affirmative
saw those
yeses.
plates on those upper trees on the upper part.
Mhm. Are they, I don't
Anybody
notice
recall seeing
them.
those? They were like spaced about every 30 feet.
I'm just going to ask for an affirmative from my residents because I don't want to have them come all the way up. You can attest to that they're still there? Okay. Okay, so that's an affirmative, Stanley, that those still exist because residents that are living off of Kendall, they're still there. They attest that they are still there,
Yes,
those
and
plates.
another thing, when we planted all the trees in the nature preserve to prevent the deer damage, and there were a lot of deer being killed on the roads, we've had a hunting program for about 20 years to maintain the deer herd. And
Mhm.
specifically, the hunters weren't allowed to go in that section because that was set aside by DuPont as a specific protected area for nature.
Gotcha. Anything else, Stanley? You're
Um,
always a wealth of knowledge on this.
Well, I've been concerned about this bus depot for that reason, because both of those properties were supposed to be preserved as nature areas.
Mhm.
And there was a proposal at one time, and I think Jay probably still has the plans. We were going to put a complete terminal for all of the borough vehicles behind the police station. And that included overhead parking for all the vehicles. I'm sure that plan still exists.
That plan still exists, Jay?
There were a number of sites looked at for Public Works Garage, and that was one of them at the police station.
Okay, so, and that was one of the sites, I think, that was listed on that 8. Was it listed on there?
It was not, because property's owned by MCUA, the adjacent.
Oh, okay, that's Stanley, that was property by MCUA, so that should absolutely be brought up as a,
Size, I think it was 5 acres and.
Yeah, they needed 7.
now, so
they needed 7.
size issue.
Well, sometimes you got to scale down a little. I mean, I don't know. Or
Well, I'm not sure of the plans, but if you looked at the original plan, it was going to include all of the borough vehicles. It was a pretty extensive facility. I'm sure it could be shoehorned in. Somebody else brought up a good idea earlier. I'm not sure who it was, regarding the using a warehouse.
Yeah, I
that's
love that
what-
idea.
That's what we did in the military often around different countries. We went to, we rented warehouses and put in modular buildings for our maintenance facilities.
That,
So I
that
think that's
I,
another option.
I thought that was that was a great option as well. So I have a call into DuPont myself, even in reference to one of the other sites on Washington Road that has the abandoned property of DuPont. I don't know if that's necessarily the best space, because I get concerned about the traffic dumping onto Washington Road. But again, I think you got to bring all possibilities to the table once more.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that those areas really were meant, and for many years, we talked about it. We spent a lot of time putting trails in portions. It was always meant to be open space.
Well, you know what? You bring up a really good point because you were talking about both of these pieces of property, the lower parcel on Laurel Park and the upper. Now, we need to do things right here as a council. I've been on an open space, just kick lately because I'm really concerned about what we see development wise. And we can right the ship, at least in reference to this particular piece of property, I think quite quickly as a council. You can turn around and make that parcel now open space as it was initially designed to do, I believe. So that's something that you can probably put onto the agenda. I can put it on the agenda. I'm going to request that that be put on the agenda for the next meeting. So that way we can actually now have that signified with the proper label and designation that it should have had all those years ago from previous administration. That's going on the agenda for the next meeting. One of the things I can do as the mayor is set the agenda. I can't turn around and vote on it unless it comes to a tie, but for our next meeting, I'm down to 3. So for our next meeting, that's going to be on there. Let's at least right that wrong and fix it so we're not here again.
Mayor, is this still a public portion?
Yeah.
If it's truly contaminated land, I don't know whether we should
I'm
figure
talking
out a
about the
way-
lower property. though.
Oh, the lower
The lower property, the lower property, yeah. Yeah, the upper property right now, I'm gonna be honest with you, with this situation, what it is, listen, I want to turn around and make that one too, but I am going to turn around and just pause because I do think that we have to have the discussion with the attorney. I do think we need to look at this. I don't want the Board of Ed reading this as we don't want to help, we don't want to be supportive, but at the same time, it just doesn't seem like this is the right place right now from everything I'm hearing. There's a lot more investigation and work that needs to be done. We have to protect ourselves. But I do think that it's incumbent upon us to help, as we said we would. This is not a turn your back on the Board of Education. This is not a turn your back on the children. The need is still there. But we have to get more creative. I mean, I think what's good is that they did come to the planning board, which initially we were concerned might not have happened. We were worried. So that was good. Now we, as residents and as council, we got to see a little bit of what that plan was going to entail because we hadn't seen it. As a council, we hadn't seen anything. But now we have, I think, a better idea. And, it's time to start entertaining some other spots. It's a need, it's a want. We're here to help. It's not our bag to hold, but we will help support in whatever capacity that we can. But we're gonna write that one piece of property down in lower Laurel Park section. That has to be done. That will be on the agenda. If you want to come back or you want to call in, pay attention to what that vote is. That's got to be done. It's got to be done.
Is a simple ordinance, I'm speaking kind of past you, Victor.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Sean,
no,
ordinance?
sure.
Yes.
Simple ordinance would be able to do that?
Because you'd be changing the zone,
Okay.
the zoning.
That sounds great. I mean, this is progress, at least, the beginning of progress.
If we're changing a zone, I mean, we have to notify all the residents within 200 feet anyway, correct?
Okay. So we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it right, okay? And I think,
Planning board too for their input.
for their input, of course, absolutely, we're gonna do it right. Stanley, are you still on? Did you have anything else to add before I
Yes,
bring up our?
I would suggest, besides that, is that you do put on the Rossi, because I found out the hard way that was the best protection for open space was to be put on the Rossi.
That's, and I'm getting a nod here from Glenn. Listen, that's what we need to do. What I'm suggesting is I want Glenn and I want Sean to work together. You know what we need. You know what our intentions are. And that's what we want to see. We want to see as much as ironclad protection for a piece of property that we can get. As we still await for the appraisals needed for that 40-acre piece, and we're still awaiting what we can do with that other piece of property across from Robin Hood Drive. So we've got 3 things moving here. Anything else, Stanley?
Yes, I originally called for the VFW, or we're still in the public portion, right?
We are, yes, Stanley.
Yeah, regarding the VFW, I can clarify of the 3 points. The VFW was always prepared. We have an attorney to go before the zoning board. We're aware of that.
Okay.
And there was no problem with our tax exempt status with the VFW or with the state. We
That's
can,
good.
as a nonprofit, we can lease property or materials, whatever, as long as the funds are used for nonprofit purposes. So the only
Was-
question for the borough is the change to the deed. That's the only thing that we really need from the borough council.
So Stanley, because you have your attorney, Stanley, can I make you the point person in addition to your attorney to work things out with Sean?
Yes.
Okay, so that way you guys are communicating and talking, and
Okay.
hopefully this will get done. I told you I would bring it up for you, so I think this is closer than we've gotten before.
All right, that's good. Thanks.
Stanley, who's the attorney? Unless you want to, send that
Yep.
later on?
Cap Beam.
Oh, Bain, okay. Kathy Bain. Thanks, Stanley. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, former councilman. It's always a pleasure. All right, that brings us now to Jimmy. Come on up. I know, he's,
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. I too went to the planning board meeting last week, as you know, and I always try and be prepared. I did a little bit of research and I found the article from 2005 where DuPont was talking about donating the property and they said, we'd like it to remain as a nature preserve. I'd heard of possible ball field expansion for some parts, maybe some nature trails and benches. These ideas have been brought up. And Mayor O'Brien said, on behalf of the people of Sayreville, I shall gratefully accept it. O'Brien said, it's about another 120 acres for our open space inventory. And the problem was, after Mayor O'Brien issued the press release, he didn't put it on the open space inventory. He didn't ask the planning board to amend the master plan. You know, we did a whole revision of the master plan in 2013, a few years after. This is still either industrial or SED. And after the master plan was done, we never changed the zoning ordinance to reflect the master plan. So it is still zoned industrial. So when the council asked for a list of properties that could be considered, that's why this was on the list. And it never should have been on the list. And I too am a former Board of Education member like the two councilmen, and I have an affinity for the schools. And that's why I fought very hard for that pilot to be denied. And I so much appreciate that in a 5-1 vote, the council did deny that because that is an additional $1 million for the schools. Now, after that, and I know that I brought up some things that made some folks uncomfortable. I don't think the board was necessarily prepared. I think I want to thank Chairman Muller and Mr. Esposito and Councilman Anoha for their input at that meeting. I thought they did an excellent job. But one of the things that Chairman Muller said was, especially after he heard all of the members of the public, is you should have been here a year and a half ago. Well, you know what? It was a year and a half ago that I first told Dr. Labby that they had to come before the planning board. So that if this discussion took place back then, before they spent, and they weren't able to tell me how much money they spent on drawing the plans and everything else so far, but had this taken place a year and a half ago, and I didn't just tell him once, he pushed back and said, no, we don't have to do that. We're subject to the State Department of Education, not to the Sayreville Planning Board. 3 more times, I reminded him that he had to come before the board. And that's not to be I wasn't trying to cause a problem. I was trying to eliminate a problem, to preclude a problem. I was trying to make sure that what happened last week, you know, that discussion could have taken place 18 months ago before all of that money was spent. And they could have said, well, okay, we made a mistake in Morgan. Maybe we learned from that. Maybe this isn't such a good thing. Maybe we go back to the drawing board. So I know they were a little bit annoyed. I communicated with Dr. Labby this morning. I sent him an email saying exactly, I don't remember what's the size of the building. He didn't remember exactly either. It said between 9,000 and 10,000 feet. So that is, I reached out to some of the other properties in Sayreville that are already built. Garden State Technology, the old Sunshine Biscuit. I reached out to them. I have a contact there, and a call was made to them. I even reached out to Andrew Mealy from Trammell Crow. I think they're a little annoyed at me. They think maybe I had something to do with that pilot being denied, but I sent him an email and said, you know, there's 10,000 square feet. You've got a lot of garage doors. You got a big parking space. The trees are already down. And it's either tractor trailers or buses on that road. Really, what is the difference? And I am pretty damn sure that after what happened last week, the Public Works garage is not going to go next to where the depot is going to go on Cheesequake Road. I can't imagine anybody sitting up here is going to say, oh, let's go through this again. Let's put our Public Works garage over there. And so maybe just maybe there's a possibility that not 10,000 square feet would be rented there. Those trees are already gone. Those buildings are already up. Maybe the Public Works garage could go there as well. And that's not the only place. I was so happy that Bill Henry talked about the MCUA property on the Main Street extension and behind the police department. That too is something I suggested to Dr. Labby when I first got involved in this quite a long time ago. I think that should be pursued. The area, I think, I couldn't hear exactly, but the area behind the police department that the MCUA owns, I think is 5.5 acres. Is that correct? I think.
5 something.
So it's something like that. Okay, so they're looking for 7, but maybe that can be used. And I do want to say this. I do want to point out the State Department of Education is interested in the planning board's recommendation. And if the planning board comes back and says, you know, there's a potential that this property can be contaminated, it was meant to be open space, and there are other sites that we are looking at. Dr. Labby wasn't limited to just the school board site. I suggested a bunch of other sites, like Mr. Henry suggested the MCUA. The DuPont site, Mayor, you and I talked about that. I know you reached out to DuPont. Some people said that's not the best site, but that might work. And ordinarily, I would say to the Board of Education, you know, it's better to own your own building. It's better to build your own building. But given the circumstances that the building with free land is going to cost $9.5 million. Free land, they're going to take down, I don't know, what was the number, 400 trees? I think we talked the other day about the cost of the removal of those trees is between $750,000 and $1 million just to take down the trees. So the fact that there's all that environmental destruction and a cost of $9.5 million, maybe, and especially since the pilot was defeated, and now they're going to get anywhere between $1 million and I still haven't gotten those figures, and we'll get into that next if I have the time, or I'll sit down and get back up again and talk about the pilot information. But now that they're getting between $1 million and $1.7 more a year because the pilot was defeated, they can afford the rent. They can afford the rent. And in the long run, I think it would be cheaper. So I think that and I said to school board members, and I said to Dr. Labby before, I will help in any way. I know just not a lot, but a little bit about commercial real estate, know a little bit about trees, a little bit about the environment. I offered to help a while ago. We exchanged any number of emails. Most of what I suggested was ignored. I understand that. I take no umbrage at that. I don't take it personally. Dr. Labby thought he knew what he was doing and didn't have to go before the board and thought this would work. But that's fine. I'm looking for places. I emailed some folks. I made some calls. I called in some contacts today. So maybe we can do that. And you know how I feel about the warehouses on Cheesequake Road. Spent an awful lot of time, as we did some other folks from Laura Park, trying to defeat that because I didn't think it was a good idea. But it's there. It's there. They're either going to be buses or tractor trailers. That road is going to be full and those trees are gone. So maybe that would work. And if I could just for a minute, at the last meeting, Sean, I know you were not here. After the pilot was denied in that actually 5-0 on 1 abstention vote, after the pilot was denied, I asked if all that information that I had requested I could now have, because the need for confidentiality no longer exists. And this is some of what I Oprah'd. This is an email to and from Mr. Skarzinski. The only thing I can read is Andrew, best regards, Glenn Skarzinski, and I can't read any of Mr. Mealy's. And I asked at the last meeting, I said, I'm going to go home and resubmit my Oprah request the next day, and I did. And the attorney said, well, we'll have to look at that. We'll have to see if you know, we can give you that information yet. I suppose if there's an appeal process, I don't know that there is, but then the need for confidentiality might still exist. But I said, okay, but please hurry. And, you know, with 2 hours to spare before the 7 business days, I got a note saying that they still have to do research. And, you know, if it takes more to redact a memo than to just give me the entire memo. So if they have the memo, you know, just get, it's like, I remember I went into Colonial Diner years ago and I asked for a tuna fish on white bread and they said, no, we can only give it to you on toast. Well, I mean, this is the toast.
That's a
I'm
lot
looking
of,
for the white bread here.
that's a lot of toner.
I'm looking for the unredacted emails, and this is an important topic. I don't think there's another more important topic in town. Mr. Attorney, you weren't here at the last meeting. Your associate was. I'm sure he brought this to your attention. What's the holdup? Why can't I have this information? And this information that I want to share with the public, because we deserve to know, the people deserve to know, the Board of Education deserves to know how much more they will get because these people will pay regular property taxes, and the people deserve to know how much more this warehouse complex will pay if they pay regular property taxes, ad valorem taxes, rather than a pilot. So I think that has to be out there. So what's the holdup? Why can't I have this information?
Do we still,
Answer it now during his comment period. He's at 10 minutes, or do you want me to wait until he's finished?
you want to finish up anything else and then he'll hit them
You
all?
want me to keep going? Is that?
Well,
is
no,
that what you're asking?
no, do you have anything else, Jim, besides that? Because
Well, I might after I hear the answer.
okay, all right, understood. Go ahead. Do we have a need for confidentiality still?
So we are still in the process of researching and redacting, and you're going to get all the documents you've requested. Some may have been and may be redacted to the point where you want more, but under the law, we're still working on it. I can tell you that there's a dual reason for the law, not just for the public to obtain information about what the governing body is doing, but also for the town to comply with the law and not to release information to the public that could do a couple things. First of all, reveal information that is not discoverable, reveal information that may put the town at a competitive disadvantage. Generally speaking, you're right. Once an issue is dead or over, in that case, you took a vote and the document went down. The town decided not to do the pilot in that case. So because that episode is over, you ask for those documents because there's no longer any type of litigation or, but there is still a process that we're going through. I know you want it yesterday, so we're still working on it, and you'll get it in due course.
What does in due course mean?
When we get to it.
When you get to it. Well, what did we pay for that Phoenix report?
What was the cost? Do we know the cost on that? Do you know the cost on that? We'll get that.
It was around.
I don't remember off the top.
I think you authorized 12.
We did.
12 and a half thousand, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's what,
$12,500. We ought to be able to see it.
yeah.
If it doesn't, you know, hurt our competitive advantage, obviously. Has the tax assessor yet seen that document?
No, he hasn't.
No?
No.
Boy, oh boy, there's something wrong there. When the tax assessor, the person who knows more about the value of commercial property, the person who appraises, the person who sets the you know, has input into the formula, that there's something that is so secret that the business administrator won't share it with the tax assessor. This is mind-boggling, and this is what causes people to distrust government and some of those who serve in government. And it's, you know, it's not unlike, and by the way, Evelyn talked about that report that was supposed to come from the Board of Education months ago. That probably went to the Bermuda Triangle along with the pilot request that they file that nobody can find. A lot of things seem to disappear here. And, you know, I asked for information about the Blue Acres. And that was held very close to the vest, and there's going to be a bond issue. Not a bond issue, a ballot question on that, and whether or not we should steal money. We should take money from our open space fund, from the $11 million we have in open space, and allow that for
I will,
the Blue
I know you're
Acres
still,
area where we just apparently planted 80 trees. So that's a good thing. We don't need that money. We have $2.6 million. When I went and sat down, we spent exactly 1%. We spent the $26,000 that we spent on trees was exactly 1% of the $2.6 million that is in the tree bank. So I would say if we need to plant more trees there, and I was happy to hear Councilman Conti say the schools are going to be planting trees, but if we have to plant more trees on Weber Avenue, $2.6 million. We had 99% left in that tree bank. And that tree bank, as I said before, I've said many times, I wrote that tree bank ordinance. It became a model ordinance in the state. We never intended the towns would just get this money and let it pile up. That money is supposed to be spent on trees. And I heard that Mr. Rittenhouse has some great grand plan. I haven't seen it. I'm happy we spent this 1%, but there is more. And we have to start working on that. So thank you very much.
I will, yeah, Ken is gonna come up also, but what do we have on the cost of that Blue Acres project that you were talking about?
The issue is not so much the availability of money to plant trees. You're correct. We have $2.6 million. We can plant 6,000 trees. The issue is where we want to plant them. There's some issues with flooding and there's issues with invasive species. We can't spend the tree money to remediate that. We're restricted. Trees and tree-related equipment is what we're allowed to spend it on, which was the reason that we asked to have some portion of the open space money to do the topographical changes in order to provide flood resiliency, remove the invasive species, and to plan moving out to the water side. So that's the reason that we asked for the referendum. You know, that we could plant $1 million worth of trees, but if we don't prepare the soils and do the work that has to be done before, they're all going to die and we're wasting money.
What's the cost on that? What's the cost on this?
Well, I had a meeting with Rutgers today. We have another meeting next week because there's other stakeholders here. There's the Raritan River watershed people want to sit down and be a part of this. There's an aspect of NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency, is part of this. And apparently, unbeknownst to any of us involved, and I've reached out to my predecessor to get a little more information, there's apparently something going on in parallel with Princeton Hydrographics working along the Washington Canal. So we're just trying at this point to gather the information, come up with a workable plan. So A, we could plant as many trees as we physically can in that space, do it in a way that they're going to survive, and open it up for passive recreation for the residents.
Fine. And that might be a great plan once we have those specifics, once we have those dollar amounts, once we know all of those things. So that might be a good thing to be on the ballot next year after it's defeated this year. But for now, open space money should be spent on open space. Mayor, I was so happy. The last two meetings, last meeting you talked about buying that 40 acres behind Kennedy Park. I was very happy to participate in that with you. I love the idea of buying the space across from Sherwood Forest on Main Street for open space. And that open space money is there for that reason. In the last 20 years, I remember, in fact, it was Stanley Grawl told me how a few years ago, one of the council people suggested buying 3 acres near Kennedy Park on Main Street across from the 9/11 monument. And Mayor O'Brien shot that down. And that property then sold for 3 acres, $145,000, and it is now owned by the temple, and it's probably going to become a parking lot. That was probably their intention. So in 20 years, we haven't bought any open space. I'm glad to hear that you want to spend money on those 40 acres and that by Sherwood Forest. It kind of is mind-boggling that while you want to do this on one hand, we want to give away, we want to destroy open space on Cheesequake Road to, it's like paving paradise and putting up a parking lot for buses. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. But I would say this, that open space money is there for a reason. That reason is open space. That tree bank money is there for a reason. That reason is to buy and plant trees. Once we buy that open space, and I think I looked in 2.4 or 2.5% of the town is vacant now. So there's only 2.5%. And as I said many times, the one thing about land is they ain't making it anymore. So if you don't get it now, next year it's going to be a warehouse or a condo or an apartment. So that open space money should be used for open space. And if next year we have our facts together, we do our homework, and we have a plan for the Weber Avenue, well, then fine. Maybe we should look at that. Maybe we should consider that. And after we use some of the tree bank money to plant trees, but for now, open space money should be used for open space. So I hope people vote no on that ballot question, and that ballot question is defeated.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ken, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. Mayor, I ask you, in the future, please don't call on me after Mr. Robinson, because I can't beat that comment about serving the tuna on white bread. We can only do it on
You
toast.
can't beat that one. Sorry, Ken, you have my word. Next time, I'm bringing you up first. Jim, you're after Ken.
All right.
You're-
Thank you. But
You're closing the show.
some years ago, an octogenarian became famous with the expression, "Where's the beef?" My question tonight is, where is the planning? And I'm not directing it at this body right here. I'm directing it at the governing bodies over the last 15, 20 years. Where is the planning when we need a piece of property for buses? We don't have a more suitable property than the school board thinks we need. And someone's earlier, and there were some really good suggestions made tonight. But I'm not going to go over them all. I'm going to highlight a few of them. But somebody talked about property on Shirley Mill Road. I happen to think that might be a pretty good idea. And I'd like to tell the Board of Education, there's an old expression. They said they have no money. We've got to donate property. Well, beggars can't be choosers. And, they want to take a prime piece of property here, which was earmarked for something, other purposes. And I ask the residents of Laurel Park, I mean, they're people too. And how much are you going to throw at a group of people like Laurel Park and the people that live over on Kramer Drive, et cetera, when these up to 60 trucks an hour get going from these warehouses? I know what's going to happen there. They think they got problems with traffic now. I commuted to New Brunswick for 30 years with Route 18, and I can tell you, every residential development between Saraville and New Brunswick was jammed with traffic as cut-throughs trying to get off for Route 18. And that's what you're going to have when you get these trucks. They're going to be, and I've said this before, they're going to be in Laurel Park, and the trucks won't be there. Of course, the cars are going to be there. They're not going to sit in line behind a group of trucks waiting to get out on Bordentown, and that is the only exit. They're going to be in Laurel Park. They're going to be on Kramer and Jensen, probably going down to the traffic light over by across from the old restaurant bar there. It was just sold. But that's going to be a nightmare. And to try and put a bunch of buses on top of all these trucks, it just isn't fair. And they've had some really good suggestions. Bill Henry made a good one about with the MCUA. I'm a former commissioner on the MCUA, so I know a little bit about the MCUA. I don't know in detail their property, But, they're an instrumentality of the Board of Tree Holders, which is now called the Board of Commissioners. And I think Bill's on the right track with contacting the county about this because that could be a viable solution. There seem to be some other viable solutions. Jim talking about renting property. That's probably a decent idea. And if it's not in Sayreville, it could be cross borders. It could be the other side of Bordentown Avenue, et cetera, maybe in Old Bridge. But I just passed, matter of fact, this weekend, I happened to be down in the area of Keensburg, and there were a whole group of buses there. And there were too many buses to probably be Keensburg itself. So it probably was a property that's rented for privately for school buses and stuff. But there are solutions. There are things that have to be looked at here. The last thing I want to do is criticize DuPont because DuPont has been a very good neighbor over the years, and they've donated a lot of property to this town. They donated the new first aid building. As a matter of fact, when I was a councilman, we sat in my living room many nights, Dexter Thomas from the first aid, a gentleman who I haven't seen too much, but Don Diem, I believe he worked for DuPont, and he was very instrumental in getting that property for our first aid building. So DuPont has been a good neighbor in that sense. I just wish they would have done one thing. I wish this is property they've donated, they designated with deed restrictions on what it's to be used for. And if they didn't do it, we certainly should have done it ourselves when we took it over. But I've listened to some good ideas tonight. The one to cite this bus terminal next to Laurel Park is an outrageous idea. And I hope everybody understands that just can't be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. All right, I'll ask, I do have a hand online, so I'm gonna go to our online resident. Eileen Pabon, you're back in.
Oh, yes. Now, I do want to support the residents of Laurel Park in a different regard. You, as the council, you did approve that big, huge warehouse that now they're going to have 60 to 80 trucks an hour, or how many they're going to be going down the road. So you guys need to be responsible and make some traffic rules and designations for that Laurel Park neighborhood that tractor trailers cannot just go tramping through the neighborhood. There should be weight limits. There should be other restrictions put in play so that the neighborhood, just like all these people here are complaining about, are not subjected to traffic in their streets. Forget school buses. We're talking tractor trailers, because I have news for everybody. The same way the bus drivers hired all those guys that really didn't speak English, read, or even know where they were going, those are the same people who are going to be driving those trucks. So let's protect Laurel Park for real and put some traffic restrictions in place so that does not become a dumping ground for everybody to go through for just to get to the warehouse quicker. And that's all I got to say. Good luck, Laurel Park.
Thanks, Eileen. That's, for those that are just coming here from Laurel Park, I've been screaming for this for day one. And that's one of the things that almost every single meeting that we've had, and I've kicked it over to Jay, I've kicked it over to Glenn, I've kicked it over to our attorneys, that we need the signage, and not just in Laurel Park, but also for Kramer as well over on that side. I have been nonstop about weight restrictions, truck restrictions, no through traffic. When Mr. Mealy was here, I turned around and told him the same thing. Those trucks need to be exiting out a different way. They cannot be utilizing Laurel Park. They cannot be cutting through there now. Now, the trucks are only one component of this. You're also going to have employee vehicles. And this is why I supported what Jim had argued multiple times. That road needed to be built. That road needed to be built in order to even just eliminate the employee traffic that will be coming out of there. I am extremely concerned for both of our neighborhoods, both Laurel Park and also the people off of Kramer and through there, because both of those areas are going to get hammered. And there is no, I know that signage can look sometimes awful, but it's necessary, it's needed, and there's going to need to be enforcement. Okay, signs only stop you for a half a second and then somebody says, well, I'm not sitting in this traffic, I'm gonna test it. And as soon as they have the first couple of times they go through without issue, then it's gonna keep happening. You need to have enforcement there. We're going to have our police there, and they're gonna have to be enforcing that. And it needs to be set up the way South River is set up. You know better than to go more than 25 over that bridge. So people are gonna need to know that you can't even attempt to go through there as through traffic. Otherwise, it's going to be constant. When I was a little girl growing up on Cedar, the house directly next door to me, there's no sidewalks in Laurel Park. None whatsoever, okay? There are a lot of cars in Laurel Park because the driveways there are single car unless you've expanded. Most of the people eliminated their carports and turned that into now a second room like a den, okay? I know, this is my childhood, this is where I lived. But there was a little girl before we moved there that was getting ice cream at the ice cream truck. And a car went around and she was killed. Her body was thrown up on my neighbor's lawn. And from this, I am 45 years old now. And to this day, that story, that family, that image, we never, ever, ever, ever went off of our front lawn. The idea of roller skating or bike riding in that area in my development, I mean, we were terrified. It wasn't a story that our parents made up in order to keep us close to the house. No, this was tragic. This was something that shook our neighborhood. And I look at the cars you cannot see. Kendall Drive, Pine Tree, and Cedar. Those are the main veins of Laurel Park. Those are the roads that are getting the traffic already flying down and around at all speeds. And the number of children that are in that development is enormous. Elementary school buses and UES buses, yes, they go through for the little kids. But the high school, those kids are walking or they're driving and parking in Kennedy Park. Okay, it is not safe. And my fear is that you are going to have some serious, God pray, not a fatal accident over there. Yes, I heard about that. And I don't want to see that happen. So I'm going to keep fighting for it. I don't care if it's a billboard. We need the lighted signs. We need the whole nine. Listen, right across Old Bridge put it up. As soon as you come across from the new Quick Check and the gas stations, they made it very clear in Old Bridge, they don't want our trucks there. They put a big signs with a slash through the trucks saying, don't come this way, going through the back road there. Okay? They knew what we were doing. They pay attention. They have to be notified of what we're doing, and they're not happy. Okay, they have a flashing light over there. They usually have a police officer over at the Melrose, at the firehouse right there. They know what's coming and they're protecting their residents. We need to do the same. Okay, that is the end of my comments. I will, actually, no. Do I have a motion to close the public unless anybody from the public has additional comments? Go ahead. I'll make one more comment after we close the public. Go ahead.
60 seconds, that's all. I
No,
want.
go ahead.
Sorry to
By all
come back
means.
up again.
No, not a
So,
problem.
Apparently, this is phase 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you do name and address
Yes, I'm
one more
sorry.
time?
Nick Manenti, 101 Kendall Drive.
You're not a regular yet. We already
Yeah,
know the
no,
others.
this is only my second. This is phase 2. This presentation that was made to the planning board is phase 2. So I don't know what happened to phase 1. And phase 1 is the demolition part of this. If you look through what was presented to the planning board. So phase 1, as far as that, I attended the Board of Education meeting last week prior to the planning board meeting. Dr. Labby made his presentation concerning this project or status update concerning this project to the board. And what he stated was they already awarded a contract to a company to start demolition. The only thing they're waiting on at this point, unless I misunderstood, is the bond clearance for that company. I guess that's part of the procedure. So once they get their bond clearance, the Board of Ed is ready to go with
never
the
signed
company
the
that they
lease.
awarded a contract to.
They never signed the lease yet.
Okay, but.
No, he's
Well-
just reporting
No,
what
I'm
they
just
said.
telling
Yeah.
you.
I mean,
Yeah, no.
like people said before, go back
Yeah.
to the videotape.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
so
I'm just saying.
All right, wait. I can't have people from the audience. That's okay. I understand. We get excited, but let, one at a time speak
I
and.
believe everything you're saying. I just don't understand how the business administrator has been trying to settle this lease for months and months. They still haven't signed a lease.
Again, if we go
So
back
how
and
they're going this
watch
way,
the
I don't know.
footage, that's what Dr. Labby
I
reported.
believe you. I'm
Unless
gonna,
and then I apologize if I misunderstood.
No,
them.
nobody's disputing.
no,
your
not at all, not
I
at all.
Just so you're aware.
Yeah.
There is no lease agreement executed with them, and unless this board votes by majority to do that, it's not gonna be.
So what I think we need to do here, and again, this is what I don't want. I don't want a communication breakdown again, the way that it occurred. And then we have a holy war within our community between two government agencies and between residents of the town. I can't allow that in the short amount of time that I have left again. What I would ask the council to support me in is having our attorney turn around and deal directly with the Board of Education, whoever their representative is, in order to make certain that while they're moving ahead in their capacity, that it's also in conjunction what they can legally do right now. As you've heard very clearly by the business administrator, there's no signed lease agreement by this council. So to turn around and go into a property that they actually don't have agreement or rights to, that's a big issue. And I don't know whether it's because they don't understand the process, but we need to make certain that our attorney is taking care of that.
So the understanding I have, I'm sorry, Mayor. I
No,
didn't-
no,
The
go ahead,
understanding I
please.
have that is that if the lease agreement isn't there yet, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
So if this contract is signed with the vendor to start demolition, once it is signed, they'll start immediately. So I'm just saying we have a time limitation here, you know.
Well, we
It's
have a
not like they-
we have an illegal issue, not a
Yeah.
time limitation.
Right.
We have a legal issue potentially, if in fact they are looking to turn around and bring somebody in to move forward.
Right.
And again, there's another component here. We have a responsibility. We can't turn around and sign a lease because there's a third party involved in this, and that is DuPont.
Right.
And DuPont has to have a say in what it is that is being put there. And we haven't fulfilled that on our end because we're just receiving what those plans and so forth were through our planning board. So there's a lot of things that, while some pieces are checked, the timelines are foggy at best. And then there's other things that need to happen in order to execute this in the proper way. And now we have additional information that I believe the council is looking at saying, whoa, we need to take pause. We need to fix something because this isn't copacetic. I will also say this. I'm beyond grateful for all of the suggestions from our residents and from the council and from Jay and our professionals. I am very happy to turn around and have anybody up here work hand in hand with the Board of Education to help them. But I also think that you need to still go to the Board of Education and let your voices be heard, because at the end of the day, it is the Board of Education's project. I don't mind any one of us turning around and trying to assist and reach out to other property owners, and that includes MCUA and anyone else that has property that might be viable for the site. But I still think that while we could reach out to the contacts that we have, the Board of Education also has to reach out as well, because they have to communicate their project. It's not our project. We can't turn around and tell these people that own this land in MCUA, hey, oh, we're looking to build a bus depot or whatever you want to call it, transportation complex, pick whatever word you want. It's not ours. That would be like you turning around and going to a real estate agent saying that the mayor would like to buy a house and let me talk to you about buying yours. And I'll get back to you and I'll let you know what she thinks afterwards. That's ridiculous. Okay? They're the ones that are looking to fulfill their needs, and they have to be able to fulfill them the way in which they need them. We can assist, we can help, we can be a communication conduit, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to determine whether this is appropriate for what their needs are. Does that make sense? Sean, did I?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so,
Just to answer the Board of Ed members'
Yeah.
suggestion about signage.
Yeah.
Again, we're there quite a while in Laurel Park. There is signage. There is currently signage.
yeah, we've been putting it up.
Down by Pine Tree and Kendall, where
Yes.
it's facing Cheesequake.
Yeah,
I think it's a 4-ton or 4,000-pound limitation.
Yeah,
Doesn't have.
it's not gonna,
But
nobody's.
there is signs there, so much for signage.
We've been starting to do that, but more needs to be there. And that is some of the things that we've had discussion with Mr. Mealy and the rest of the individuals over at Trammell Crow, making it very clear to them that this is an absolute no-go. I was actually on Cheesequake Road, I was leaving my parents' house the other day. There was a massive tractor trailer trying to make the right onto Bordentown. Oh my God, I didn't know what was gonna happen first. I didn't know whether the truck was gonna tip. I didn't know whether the whole entire intersection was gonna be closed down. I know they have to work on those improvements. Jay, do we have any timeline as when they're widening the road and taking part of that to make that happen? Because this is a disaster already.
No update since the
Yeah.
last meeting. I think they're still waiting on poles to be.
We went through 3 light cycles. And then you started to see the people getting frustrated, and then they were creating their own form of traffic laws. I saw one car, I swear to God, I thought it was gonna try and go underneath the tractor trailer because it was that, it had enough. And already I'm just seeing the future of what we're going to be dealing with. So, I hear you. Thank you.
Different topic, real quick.
Okay, but now you see, you promised me one. No, I'm only kidding.
Well, you got me up here.
Go ahead.
What you were discussing before about the tractor trailers making the left out of that massive complex that's there
Yeah,
now.
they can't, yeah.
Well, I've seen in many different localities where they had items hanging across the road with signage saying height restriction, 12 feet, whatever, however many inches, with the rubber cones
Yeah.
hanging down. And if the truck hits that, that means they're not going to go another 100 yards up the road and hit the bridge because they'll know they
I
won't be
love
able to
that.
get under it. What's the feasibility of maybe putting that in place and having the warehouse people pay for it?
Listen, I'm all for that. I say, let's look into it. Anybody have objection to that? Because I would much rather turn around, and quite frankly, we kind of need it on over by the police department too, because so many times I can't tell
You
you
could
how many
install it
times.
on Cheese Creek Road, right at the entrance or the exit to
Yeah.
the warehouse facilities before they try to make the left.
Let's look into that. What professional wants to take on that one? Let's get them working. Jay?
I think there may be some public safety issues with something like that. We can discuss further with.
Yeah, check it out.
Police department.
Yeah, check it out and see what we can do. I love that
Thank you.
idea. Thank you. Okay, Bill. Oh, did I miss, were you coming? I am so sorry. Bill, sit back down. Sorry, right there, Bill. Just stay right there for a second. I apologize. You want to get the question before she comes up, is
Yes,
what you're
you
saying?
have it. Bill Henry, 75 Orchard Street. I hear that the Dr. Labby's not responding to anything like you've been requesting. Why don't you send him a certified letter saying what the intent of the council is at this time? You don't have a lease agreement with the town, and that you shouldn't move forward with anything else until you get a lease agreement. I would think, since he's not responding to you, send him a certified letter so he understands how the council feels.
All right, he is responding to us, but yes, we'll send that correspondence.
Yeah.
Hi.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Name and address, please.
I'm older now. I'm more patient.
Okay, that was just from waiting through this meeting,
In
right?
my
Yeah.
youth, I had none. My name is Carol Ainley. My maiden name's Chase. In March 1954, my parents moved into 27 Ash Terrace. I was 6 months old. Except for maybe 2 years when I first got married, I've been in that house ever since.
That's her address. There you go.
27 Ash Terrace. I've seen a lot of changes in this town. Some I don't like, some I do. I was at the meeting that's been mentioned, that was the planning board meeting. I was under the impression that this was a go. It's gonna happen. They're gonna put this bus depot there. The way they were talking, that's what I was led to believe, like that gentleman mentioned. Also mentioned was about the lawsuit, about the buses being parked by Enston Estates. They had to be moved over to the other side of the high school. What's the difference between the buses at Enston Estates and buses behind Kendall Drive? Same difference as far as I'm concerned. And certain procedures weren't done, weren't followed. Doesn't that negate the whole thing? You know, rules are rules. You have certain steps, you go from A to B to, you know, and so on. They haven't done it. We cannot have this here behind Kendall Drive. I didn't know the land was polluted. When I was a kid, we all played back there. You know, I mean, we built forts, there's animals back there. I mean, and it's supposed to be staying the way it is according to the plan behind when DuPont gave it to us. There's plenty of land in Saraville. There's got to be commercial or, oh, I can't think of the other word. I'm getting tired.
Industrial.
Thank you. Industrial land where we can put this bus depot. On top of wanting to put this thing there, they're also talking about putting in tanks. I'm assuming gas tanks
That was one of the questions.
above ground?
Mary, I think you had that
Yeah,
question. Yeah, that was one of yours.
That was my question of the Board of Education because
They mentioned.
we have a contract with them they use our pumps and then we bill them for a certain amount of money, but that was when they only had like 15 buses. And we no longer can keep up with them. And we told them that they're gonna have to put in their own gas supply tanks because we can't keep up with it.
I don't know that I'm gonna want gas tanks that close to my house. I mean, gee, what happens if lightning strikes? What, goes through my head, among other things. And it sounds to me, I understand why we needed to do the buses. Our kids do need to be safe. My kids took the buses. I took the bus.
Yeah, me too.
I can remember a story when I was a kid, there was a bus driver, Mr. Mack, who started to have a heart attack while driving the bus and had the sense to pull over and save every kid on that bus. And he lived here. He was one of us.
Yeah.
I can understand, not wanting somebody who doesn't speak English. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds to me like they put the horse before the cart here. They got all these buses and, oh, well, now what are we going to do with it? We need them to realize it can't be near residential areas. I can understand they don't want it in Morgan, it makes sense. Shouldn't be there either. We've got plenty of space. We need to put it there. Now, if I understand what's happened here tonight, this is not a done deal.
No, there's no lease agreement, but the Board of Education, they're clearly going, they need a site as Ms. Babone had communicated. So they're going to, at the end of the day, they're going to pick a place to do this. Okay, whether that includes us assisting them in finding a space or whether they seek one out on their own in some other capacity. I think it's very important. And please come here. I'm excited whenever we have residents and people here. But I also think that you need to make sure, because we are separate government agencies, they need to hear from you also, because they need to understand that there's got to be a better plan. This is their project. Let them know how you feel about it, because I think we're all in agreement. Yes, we support that you need a bus facility. But I think it's important for them to also realize that that facility has to make sense for our town. And if this site, and we're hearing a whole lot of things, I think that if we were to put up, whether or not to sign the lease agreement tonight, doesn't feel like it would go through. We're gonna do what we have to do on this end, as this entity, but they're still going to pick someplace. And I think it's important for the residents to go there also.
Hopefully they'll take place in industrial or commercial area.
Hopefully.
That won't affect residents.
Yeah, hopefully we can help them find that. Hopefully we can.
They didn't even do an environmental study. These are supposed to be educated people.
So,
To me, it's incompetence in a lot of respects.
no, I appreciate your coming here this evening, but please, we hear you. We all hear you. Let them hear you too, and this isn't something that we're trying to make combative. We need to find the right place.
We do.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is not the right place.
So, thank you.
Thank you for hearing me.
Okay, I think we're okay now. Everybody's good?
Motion
Entertain-
to close the public.
Okay, a motion to close the public? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
To adjourn and 5-minute break.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Hey, anybody want to stick around for the agenda session? That's next. Thank you all. thank you all for
Take notice that this agenda meeting of the mayor and council being held this 23rd day of October 2023 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call, please.
Councilpersons Balca,
Still here.
Conti, Novak,
Still here too.
Anoha,
Here.
Roberts,
Here.
Zabrowski. Okay,
First, a thank you for opening up that window, Councilman Conti. General discussion, here we go.
authorization to execute an agreement with the County of Middlesex for the acceptance of a fiscal year 2025 municipal alliance grant in the amount of $18,183. Authorization to amend 12-1.3 construction fees to add fees required by the Division of Community Affairs. Authorization to award a non-fair and open contract to Wax Utility Products for one skid-mounted valve and Buffalo Box vacuum in an amount not to exceed $24,510.
Okay.
It's your turn.
That's parts for a piece of equipment. The water and sewer. That's
No,
part-
that's a skid mounted, it goes in the back of a truck.
Okay. Okay.
Some more personnel moves, looking for authorization to change employment status of Caitlin Mulcahy from part-time clerk 1 to full-time keyboarding clerk 1 in the clerk's office effective November 1st. For authorization to promote Jean Marino Leary to keyboarding clerk 2 in the clerk's office. For authorization to promote Wayne Bieber to maintenance worker 2 and 2 grounds in the Parks Department effective November 1st. Authorization to promote Richard Serpio to senior maintenance repair in the Parks Department effective November 1st. Authorization to promote Connor Deacon to maintenance repair in the Parks Department effective November 1st. And authorization to promote Beata, and I'm going to pronounce your last name wrong, Duigan, to supervisor of payroll clerk and benefits in the Finance Department, retroactive to October 1st. She's in there now. That's all I have.
Oh, am I not on? There we go. CFO's report. Denise, please.
Budget transfer resolution.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One item, we need a resolution closing out 2021 road project Phase 1. All the work's been completed. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, wait a minute. You didn't say the magic word.
Actually, Mayor, with the change order, you actually amended this contractor previously to allow them to
Okay.
pave William Street, the Old Bridge section. So you already did a change order, have them do extra work. So you don't need it now.
Excellent. Okay. Borough Attorney.
Nothing additionally, Mayor.
Wonderful. No reason for exec. Anybody left from the public have anything to say? We've covered every issue, I think, under the sun. We're good. All right.
Motion to close the public.
Second,
Second, all in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go in peace.